Good evening, ladies and gentlemen and colleagues. Please be seated. Thank you. No? Yeah, I think that's fine. Thank you. Well, here we are in another year, 2023. I can't believe it. I hope everybody had a joyful and peaceful break. And let's all work together to make 2023 a good one for the city. Right, on to business. Agenda item number 1, apologies.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. We've had apologies from Councillors Bell, Ion, Mafemba, McCarthy, Avaei, Middleton, Penny Evans, Sheraton, Hazel Stevenson, John Paul Stevenson, Stokel Walker, Story, David Wood and Margaret Wood.
Any other apologies? Durrant. Thank you. Agenda item number 2, minutes of previous meetings. Does Council agree the minutes of the previous meeting held on the 2nd of November, subject to a number of typos being corrected? Councillor Taylor?
Sorry, Lord Mayor, I'm not sure if it counts as a typo. There was one typo that I was going to mention where Councillor Hall was described as Councillor Howell, but the more serious, one that does need changing, on the Tyne and Weir Fire and Rescue Service, it said Councillor Woodard accepted the amendment, but it wasn't Councillor Woodard's motion.
Right, OK, I think we have all that. Yeah, thank you, we have all that. Thanks. Agenda item number 3, official announcements. As you may be aware, the City Council pleaded guilty yesterday to a breach of the Health and Safety at Work Act 1974. This follows an accident in 2020 in which a tree fell in the grounds of Gosforth Park First School and a pupil, Ella Henderson, aged 6, tragically lost her life. We have fully admitted our failings in this case and have implemented new procedures to prevent such a tragedy from ever happening again. On behalf of us all, I would like to express my profound condolences to Ellis' family and once again apologise unreservedly for their unimaginable loss. Thank you. On behalf of the Council, I would like to congratulate all those with connection to Newcastle who were recognised in the New Year's Honours List, and in particular, Professor Eugene Millen, on being awarded the MBE for Services to Public Health and Wellbeing. Well done, Eugene. I know he's not here tonight, but I'm sure we can pass that on to him. I have received a request from the Liberal Democrat group for an emergency notice of motion on the proposals for devolution. The grounds for urgency relate to the announcement of the proposals on the 28th of December 2022, after the publication of the agenda for this meeting. I have agreed to that request, and the notice of motion is included in the items circulated at meeting pack. An amendment to this has also been received and published. The emergency notice of motion will be presented after agenda item number 11. A request has also been received to change the order of business this evening to bring forward item 12, the notice of motion regarding the WASPI. Ladies. We'd like to bring this forward to after item 6, after public question time. Does Council agree to the change in the order? Agreed? Yep, smashing. As tonight's City Council meeting will determine the council tax base, I would like to remind members that the guillotine will fall at 9 p.m. rather than 8:30. Now, last meeting we managed to get all the business done before the guillotine fell. So let's hope we can do the same tonight. Fingers crossed. I mean, I don't suppose anybody's got a book on that. Agenda item number 4, correspondence. Does Council agree to receive the correspondence from the Home Office, the Police and Crime Commissioner, the Department for Work and Pensions, the Department for Levelling Up, Housing and Communities, and the letter from the LGA in the items circulated for meeting pack? Agreed? Wonderful. Agenda item number 5, petitions. 2 petitions have been received this month. I will now call upon Councillor Huddart to present the first petition.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. This is in fact 3 petitions together, 2 from residents, 1 from the relatives of those residents living in high-rise blocks. And if I can read this petition out. We, the residents of Shieldfield House and the Spinney, high-rise buildings, wish to draw the attention of Newcastle City Council to the ongoing concerns raised by the problematic contract for repair and maintenance of the lifts. For several months now, many of us have been inconvenienced by the repeated malfunctioning of our residential lifts. Unfortunately, when these lifts have been out of action for days and weeks, this has involved lots of phone calls to IHN and others, plus anxiety for ourselves and our families. If a lift is broken and an emergency occurred, many of us would have difficulty to leave the building. LD residents, especially the less mobile ones, rely on lifts to get out to health centres or hospital, as well as doing their shopping. having visits from relatives or just getting out into the fresh air. We understand the City Council recently agreed a new contract for lift maintenance, and despite many complaints about the poor service, the contractor has not been replaced. We ask that the Council and YHN take urgent action to ensure a reliable firm is promptly employed to maintain our lifts and ensure they are fit for purpose.
Thank you, Councillor Huddart. I now call on Councillor Ali to respond.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and Happy New Year to yourself and everyone in the Chamber. Before I formally accept the petition, Lord Mayor, I'd like to start by apologising to our residents who have been affected by recent lift issues. We know how inconvenient and distressing it can be for them when there are problems with lifts in blocks, and we can assure residents that we are working to address the concerns with the lift contractor. While the lifts have been undergoing repairs, staff from YHN have been making extra visits to the building to monitor the progress of the repair and provide reassurance to their customers. I understand that every property has been visited to offer extra support to those customers who require it, and letters have been sent to all customers to ensure anyone that they weren't able to speak to in person have been kept up to date. We are closely scrutinising the performance of the lift contractor, and it is our priority to reduce any further disruption. I accept the petition. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ali. I now call upon Councillor Lovett to present the second petition.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. This petition is to improve the number 35 stagecoach bus service in Newcastle upon Tyne. We, the undersigned, being residents of Newcastle upon Tyne, call upon Stagecoach and Nexus to improve the 35 bus service serving the north of the city. Currently, the last bus, Monday to Saturday, is at 18:15 hours from the Mormon Church on Forden Lane, NE3, into Newcastle city centre. This is a significant diminution of the previous service available to residents, restricting the freedom of movement of local people and their ability to participate in the full life of the city. So we request Stagecoach and Nexus to introduce buses running on evenings, Sundays and bank holidays. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Lovett. I will now call on Councillor Byrne to respond.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I will certainly respond, and I just had it up to do my response and now I've lost it. Apologies. Right.
We'll start the clock again.
Many apologies. That's what happens when you try and do everything on one device. Thank you for your petition. The provision of Stagecoach number 35 bus service is a matter for Stagecoach and Nexus to respond to, and we will make sure that they are aware of this petition. I'm aware that Councillor Lovett has been in discussion directly with David Parker at Stagecoach regarding this matter. Councillor Lovett will also be aware that there is a meeting arranged for the 26th of February with all Forden and West Gosforth ward members, Stagecoach, Nexus and colleagues from traffic management to discuss the provision of service in this area. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Byrne. That's the petitions all sorted. Agenda item number 6, public question time. We have one request to address Council tonight, and I call upon Mr Brian Moore to address us all. Mr Moore.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Dear Councillor Brian, with the completion of the 3-lane A1 allowing through traffic to no longer need to go through Newcastle, is it not time to look at removing the central motorway to through traffic? Given the implementation of the clean air zone to incorporate the A167 motorway, central motorway, in the Newcastle city centre, and Gateshead Council seeking funding for the demolition of the Gateshead highway to be replaced by a tree-lined boulevard, would it not make sense to demolish the central motorway by infilling it to create a vibrant tree-lined boulevard this side of the Tyne Bridge as well? For too long, the city centre expansion has been constrained eastwards due to this 1970s monstrosity that was designed when planners thought that Newcastle should become the Venice of the North, given car priority over pedestrians. With the central motorway converted into a tree-lined pedestrian-friendly road, emphasis on road there, incorporating public art, prioritising public transport and cyclists, allowing the city centre to expand eastward would make sense to a reasonable person. Given the desire of the authority to reduce carbon emissions, reduce pollution, expand the city, and makes Newcastle stand out as a must-visit destination, would you agree with me that infilling the A167, still giving local traffic, cyclists, public transport and pedestrians access to the Tyne Bridge while discouraging through traffic is a great idea? May I ask Councillor Byrne, agree with the people of Newcastle that now is a time to start the process of infilling the central motorway to create a tree-lined boulevard?
Thank you, Mr Moore. I will now call on Councillor Byrne to respond.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I agree with you, Mr Moore, that we should be creating a greener Newcastle and encouraging walking, wheeling and cycling. The administration's commitment to that is shown in the work that we are doing on net zero and the biodiversity emergency, the development of school streets, pursuing a policy of traffic to, not through neighbourhoods, and improving pedestrian and cycling infrastructure. Where we differ is that I don't think isolated projects are the way to achieve what we want. As I outlined in the report I took to Cabinet in October, what we need is to develop a comprehensive approach to transport to and around the city centre, the wider city and the region as a whole. Currently, the Central Motorway carries approximately 70,000 vehicles per day between Newcastle and Gateshead via the Tyne Bridge and forms a key part of the region's highway network. I would never countenance making changes to the Central Motorway unless it was part of a much wider plan that ensured viable alternative routes and transport options. And I'm sure that the people of Newcastle would agree with me that this is the right approach. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Byrne. Mr Moore, I think you know how this works. You've got a minute to respond.
Yes, I do. Right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Byrne, for your comprehensive reply. The North East Party has campaigned for years to improve the mobility of residents across Newcastle and the region. The Central Motorway decreases mobility of the residents of Newcastle, is cut the city off from the east of Newcastle, inhibiting growth and prosperity of the city now for decades. The Central Motorway cuts through the city, sealing off the surface roads like a blowtorch, cauterises veins. Infilling it will actually improve traffic because it will give officers a chance to break open surface streets and restore overall circulation. The Central Motorway is a 1960s concrete nightmare that was wrong then and is now even more. And that's it. I'll finish on that one.
Thank you, Mr Moore.
1 minute.
Well done. You've been practising. You've been practising, haven't you?
Thank you.
Are you going to stay for the rest of the meeting?
To get my other half to come down, I bribed her with a meal.
Oh, right, OK. Well, I'm surprised. I thought you'd like to hang around. But never mind, please.
OK,
I'll
thank you.
I'll let you make your exit. We will be moving on to the agenda item number 12. So we now have the WASPy campaign. So, ladies, it's your turn. Councillor Williams, you're going to be proposing this motion, and it will be seconded by Councillor Copley. Councillor Williams.
Thank you, Lord Mayor and members, for moving the motion up the agenda to accommodate the wonderful WASPy women in attendance this evening. The WASPy campaign is fighting for justice for all women born in the 1950s, affected by the changes to the state pension age. WASPy is not against equalisation, but does not accept the unfair way the changes to state pension age were implemented with inadequate or no notice. Because of the way the increase was brought in, 3.8 million women born in the 1950s have been hit particularly hard. 14,300 of these women live in Newcastle, 65,000 in the North East. They are angry that we've been treated unfairly and unequally just because of the day we were born. Significant changes to the age we receive our state pension have been imposed upon us with a lack of appropriate notification, with little or no notice, and much faster than we were promised. Some of us have been hit with more than one increase. As a result, hundreds of thousands of women are suffering financial hardship, with not enough time to replan for retirement. Women are saying that they can't believe their retirement age has increased by 4, 5 and 6 years and didn't even know about it. With no other source of income, until the 1990s, many women weren't allowed to join company pension schemes. Many of us were carers or in poor health. Securing work is proving impossible, and zero contract hours or job seekers allowance is the only alternative for money. 1950s women have been singled out for unfair and unequal treatment because of the way the increases to state pension age have been brought in. WASPI have undertaken extensive research, including freedom of information requests, and have discovered that recommendations to give fair notice were ignored. We weren't appropriately or personally notified of the changes in 1995. Women of a similar age have to wait disproportionately longer for their pension. A 1-year difference in birthday can be almost 3 years difference in state pension age. Letters were sent out to women born on or after the 6th of April 51 to the 5th of April 53, 14 years after the Pensions Act. A large percentage of these women only received a letter advising them of significant increases to the state pension age within 1 year of their expected state pension age of 60. Very many others received 2, 3 or 4 years' notice. Women were given as little as 1 year's notice of up to a 6-year increase to their state pension age, compared to men who received 6 years' notice for a 1-year rise of state pension age. Many women report receiving no letter ever. Others say letters were sent to the wrong address despite notifying DWP of their change of address. WASPI have received many stories, including how the job market isn't ready to accept older women, they're being forced to take jobs which are inappropriate to their state of health. Irreversible decisions have been made in the expectation of retiring at 60, in times of austerity, accepting early redundancy and retirement. Single, divorced and widowed women often have no other source of income. Women have lost their independence, relying on husbands and partners to support them. Women are unable to work as they care for elderly and ill parents or are in ill health themselves. Retirement plans with husbands, partners, children and grandchildren have been shattered. Women who have planned and saved for their retirement are living in dwindling limited savings until they reach their state pension age, when the only income they will have is their state pension. The government's maladministration has caused great hardship for individuals and the wider community. Women are unable to take on caring responsibilities or childcare, are finding themselves in poverty, are missing from the voluntary sector and are no longer economically active. These factors have a significant effect on the local services. As the campaign goes on, we are sadly seeing many of the 1950s women reach the end of their lives before they reach their pensionable age and have time to enjoy it. WASPI Women celebrated the life of Susan Beavers last week. As a campaign, we will always be grateful for her expertise, wise counsel and encouragement. She was instrumental in the campaign, and we will fight on with Susan very much in our memories. WASPI Women ask for fair and immediate compensation. I look forward to members showing their continuing support by supporting the motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. Councillor Copley, would you like to speak now? Okay, thank you.
I'd like to thank Councillor Williams for bringing this motion, and I would like to thank the women up there for standing so firm and so strong through some very, very difficult circumstances. Thank you. WASPy woman. I'm not actually a member of WASPy, but I will be joining, so thank you for the prompt. I have to say this is one of the greatest injustices of, I think, that I've come across personally. I didn't receive a letter. I have no recollection of a letter at all. And when I did ring to query the process, I was told not to worry because these things would happen in the fullness of time. So foolishly, I went along with that, but never mind. The WASPy ask, this is a really, really important motion, and I hope everyone here will pay full attention to what is before us. And I also would like to thank Newcastle City Council, I think, for the support that we give generally to this issue, the acknowledgement of the difficulties of these women. WASPy calls on the government to agree a fair and fast compensation for all women affected by the lack of notice regarding the state pension age increases, 1995 to 2011 Pensions Acts, to reflect their financial losses, the sustained damage to their mental health and well-being, and the additional impacts, which many people know this by, worsening health, carers' responsibilities, all of those things that impact on the well-being of WASPy women. We also call for the government to act on the Parliamentary and Health Service Ombudsman findings now to prevent any further longer-term damage to WASPy women. Since 2015, the WASPy campaign have pursued complaints of maladministration to the DWP. In July 2021, the Parliamentary and Health Service Ombudsman found that the Department of Work and Pensions failed to adequately inform women about the increase to their state pension age of up to 6 years, as my colleague Councillor Williams has already stated. The report also revealed that the DWP and the government not only knew their communications were inadequate, but they refused to do anything at all about it. That's absolutely outrageous, and we should all be very, very angry about that. WASPy is not seeking the return of the state pensions lost. They are not opposed to equalisation of the state pension age, so this is not a male versus female, men versus women issue at all. Nor are they asking for the state pension age to revert to 60. They are asking for fair and fast compensation. And I'll just rest there, Lord Mayor. I know other colleagues are very keen to speak.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Copley. I have 5 members wishing to take part in this debate. I will call upon Councillor Hay, then Councillor Taylor, followed by Councillors Sathian, Copley and Kemp. Councillor Hay.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. And before I speak to the motion, can I join colleagues in commending those both in the gallery and at home who've taken a stand and campaigned passionately for 1950s-born women. Their strength, passion and determination is inspiring and deserves recognition. So thank you. Lord Mayor, women forced to wait longer for their state pension have suffered a great injustice. They've seen their pension age raised twice and have faced financial hardship as a result. Successive ministers have stated that changes to the state pension age are vital to ensuring that our pension system is fair, affordable and sustainable. I doubt anybody would dispute that. We are living longer. Few would argue that the state pension age should rise to reflect that. The crux of the matter is, however, that the changes made in 1995 and 2011 were not properly communicated to those affected. Many were forced to cancel retirement plans after a lifetime of work with no warning. Many found themselves hunting for work or left living hand to mouth while desperately trying to conserve what little savings they had, just to ensure a minimal standard of living during their retirement. That a relatively small group of women were forced to bear the cost of making our pension systems affordable is unfair and blatantly discriminatory. The government must act now to make amends and pay compensation to the millions of women so badly let down by successive governments and the actions they took. Please support this motion.
Thank you, Councillor Hay. Councillor Taylor? Sorry, Councillor Morrissey? All right, okay, thank you, I'll add it.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I should also declare a personal interest as a Waspie woman myself. Plans to increase the state pension age were first announced in the Pensions Act 1995, but these changes were accelerated as part of the Pension Act in 2011. And as has been said, it's clear that these changes were implemented unfairly, with little or no personal notice. And it's sad that we're still debating this issue after so many years. Of course, few would argue with the principle of the state pension age being the same for men and women. But if you're making such changes, it is vital that those affected are given time to make different arrangements for their retirement. And that is exactly what the government failed to do for women born in the 1950s. The changes were implemented faster than promised with the 2011 Pension Act and left women with no time to make alternative plans, leading to devastating consequences. The Liberal Democrats have long supported the Waspie campaign. In January 2018, we proposed that the government should give £15,000 to each affected woman. And then a year later, at our 2019 autumn conference, we passed a motion calling for the Waspie women to be properly compensated for the failure of government to properly notify them of the changes to the state pension age, in line with the recommendations of the Parliamentary Ombudsman. The motion stated that the government's failure to properly notify Waspie women to the changes to their retirement age has meant that people have been left unable to properly plan for their retirement, and it is right that they are compensated for this. Yet over 3 years later, it seems little progress has been made. And as this evening's motion points out, many of those affected have now died without receiving the compensation they deserved. We are very pleased to support this motion and to demand that the government resolves this injustice with an immediate compensation package. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Councillor Sabian, followed by Councillor Morrissey.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Can I thank Councillor Williams for bringing this very important motion to the Council, which I fully support. And I also want to thank all the Waspie women who are present here. Thanks for coming. Lord Mayor, I want to talk about the effect of maladministration on women born in the 1950s. Women have been impoverished and disempowered by the government's failure to properly inform them of the dramatic changes to their state pension age. The lack of notice gave them no time to make alternative arrangements. It takes a lifetime of work to prepare for retirement. Women made significant decisions about theirs based on what they had always known, that they would retire at 60. Women who were robbed of the opportunity to save for the revised retirement were once again disadvantaged during COVID, as they are more likely to be employed in sectors that were closed down. Part-time work and gig economy were hugely impacted by the pandemic. The Ombudsman report made it very clear that opportunities to properly inform women were wasted when the government's own research showed that women were not sufficiently aware of the changes. It is a financial disaster for women born in the 1950s. Women have a huge hole of tens of thousands of pounds in their pension pot. The government must address this urgently. Waspie women deserve fair and fast compensation. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Sabian. Councillor Morrissey.
Thank you. I thank Councillor Williams for bringing this motion to Council and urge everyone to back it. The effects of the injustice to women born in the 50s on the communities in Newcastle-upon-Tyne has been significant. Any support we can provide for an immediate compensation package to be put in place should be given. I myself, along with many others here tonight, am a Waspie woman. I received a letter from the DWP several years ago stating that my state pension would start in September 2019. Happy days, I thought. 2 weeks later, I received another letter stating that there had been a mistake, and as there'd been changes to the pension scheme, my state pension wouldn't begin until September 2024. Although I was bemused and aggrieved in equal measure, this didn't have for me the catastrophic consequences it did have for some women. Sadly, many of the women most affected are no longer with us, so nothing can be done for them. Therefore, it is incumbent on us who are still able to fight on to do so and to right this wrong. I can understand why the pension age was changed, but cannot accept it needed to be done in the way it was. And I am appalled at the consequences it had for many women and families, not only in the North East, but all over the country. Anything that can be done to alleviate the hardships still being suffered by many of these women should be done so as soon as possible. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Morrissey. Councillor Kemp.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. It was a pleasure to meet the WASPI women this evening and delighted to see you all here in the chamber tonight. Lord Mayor, I'm pleased to support this motion. It's appalling that something so fundamental should have necessitated the creation of such a significant and an amazing campaign group, WASPI Women, and I'm proud to support the work of the campaign and of all those women affected by accepting the ask of the motion to highlight the impact of the injustice to 1950s women, to ask government to act immediately in agreeing and delivering the compensation package. Evidence exists that highlights how thousands of female pensioners die in financial hardship after state pension age changes. More than 38,000 women face dying this year without having received the full state pension owed to them. As Angela Madden, the chairwoman of WASPI, said, these death statistics are a stark reminder that time is running out for WASPI women. We spent years working and paying our dues, only to find out that we had to wait an additional 6 years for our state pension to come in, and with no warning at all. Now we are fast approaching retirement with our finances in ruins. The cost of living crisis means WASPI women are struggling to pay essential bills, heat their homes and put food on the table. We are watching thousands of women die in financial hardship while ministers refuse to talk. A recent WASPI survey revealed almost a third of the affected women are in debt, with 30% saying they would use any compensation won from government simply to pay off debts. The Department of Work and Pensions should have written individual letters to affected women 28 months before it finally sent them out, an oversight it called maladministration, giving WASPI women hope that they would receive compensation, but since then they've faced further wait. The report from the Ombudsman stated that the opportunity that additional notice would have given them to adjust their retirement plans was lost. The second part of the Ombudsman's investigation was completed in December, repeating that the DWP was guilty of maladministration. However, it added that this did not lead to all the injustices claimed. We know that the Ombudsman is currently considering its final step, looking at what action the DWP should take to remedy the injustice. But this is too little too late for many women, and as maladministration has been identified, the government needs to do the right thing and act quickly and decisively and stop further fear and misery that thousands of women who have contributed so much to the country are experiencing. We support the WASPI women of Newcastle and across the UK in calling on the government to agree fair and fast compensation for everyone hit by the lack of notification of state pension age increases to suitably reflect their financial losses, the sustained damage to their mental health and well-being, and the additional impacts. And this matter is urgent. We're in the midst of a cost of living crisis with soaring costs of fuel, food and heating. These women need to have this matter sorted urgently and receive what they are rightly entitled to and what they have worked their whole lives for. I support the call for the one-off compensation payments of between £11,666 and £20,000 for all those affected by DWP failure to give women enough warning that the state pension age was going up from 60 to 66. The Chancellor may well have announced the triple lock being protected, but this is the very least that the government could do to protect pensioners who've contributed enormously their whole lives in the toughest times we have known for many years. Women born in the 50s are already on the back foot, having had their retirement age changed from 60 to 66 without their knowledge. Lord Mayor, the requests of the WASPI women are fair and measured, but I suggest the time for meetings has passed. It's time for government to just do the right thing, act now, and pay the compensation. I'm proud as the Labour leader of the City Council to support this motion. And could I perhaps ask if Council, as I'm the last speaker, show our acknowledgement and support to the WASPI women by a round of applause?
Thank you, Councillor Kemp, and thank you, ladies. I will now call upon Councillor Williams. You have nothing to add? No, great, thank you. Colleagues, is the motion agreed? Agreed. Marvellous. There we go, ladies. Let's hope. Let's hope. Would you ladies like to hang around, or do you want to make an exit? You've been hanging around too long. We will move on to agenda item number... Oh, yes. Councillor Williams, I know you're a retread, and I know you have spoken before, but this really was your maiden speech tonight, wasn't it? Was it not? Well, it was now, so nothing like a round of applause anyway, is it so? Right, we will now move on to agenda item number 7. Reports referred from Cabinet and Constitutional Committees. A. The Treasury Management Mid-Year Update. I will call upon Councillor Frew to move the report.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. The crowd are getting out at the right time, I think.
They are.
Slightly drier item. I'm proud to present the Treasury Management Report. The main highlights are that the Council's debt is decreasing, an opportune time while interest rates are rising. That creates a real cost to the local authority in trying to borrow to invest. We have made good use of low interest rates over previous years, and it makes it more important for us as an authority to make best use of grant funding where we can get it. Our most significant Treasury managed risk remains the low-bow loans that we hold from previous years. The risk is that the lenders use their option, and then we have to refinance through the Public Works Loan Board, which at this time probably means higher interest rates going forward. Those risks are mitigated by those loans being staggered, but that is a risk that we have inherited from previous years. I don't want to take up too much time, and I'll listen to any questions and try to respond.
Thank you, Councillor Frew. This is to be moved by seconded rather by Councillor Kilgour. Are you wishing to speak now, or would you like to? All right, thank you. I have 2 members wishing to speak on this, Councillor Hall and Councillor Ferguson. Can I ask you to take the podium?
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Sorry, just to clarify, I did ask one of the officers beforehand, but this item is for comment and debate rather than simply for questions.
Yes.
Right, okay. Thank you very much, Lord Mayor. Firstly, thank you to the officers for their efforts putting this report together. It shows their exceptional efforts given the difficult financial circumstances that the Council finds itself in. I'd particularly like to thank and congratulate the new Finance Director for this year, who I've had the privilege to work with in Finance Scrutiny Committee. There's much positive in this report in terms of reducing borrowing, a prudential investment strategy, reduced interest costs, as the Cabinet member has pointed out. But whilst this all looks good, in communities across the city, this kind of rings a bit hollow. You know, it's hollow against the lack of investment in local roads and pavements. It's hollow against the wastage due to massive delays in major projects, for example, Hadrick's Mill. And it's kind of hollow against the laser focus that the Council has had on the city centre investment, to the extent of redoing Haymarket 3 times over. Prudential financial management is reassuring, and again, I applaud officers for the care they take in this. but we need to see a proper investment strategy for the whole city. Now, the Cabinet member has recently promised in committee that it is on its way, and I very much look forward to reading it. But surely we should have had this years ago. We should have redressed the balance years ago. And, you know, I would urge, as we oft hear it at the moment, the self-proclaimed new administration, New Labour, if I may, to learn the lessons from their forerunners and push investment out of the city centre to bring the benefits to local communities. Now, you know, Liberal Democrats have proposed many measures across the years to try and rectify this balance, be it area committees, capital investment in roads and payments, and more funds for local charities and organisations. You know, the Liberal Democrats have and will always push for proper community investments for Newcastle residents, and I hope that the Cabinet member will show that progress in the coming weeks. Thank you very much, Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Hall. Would you like, can I ask Councillor Ferguson to speak now, and then you can, Councillor Ferguson?
Thank you, Lord Mayor. A brief comment from me. I am conscious that perhaps amongst all of the members in this chamber, that there are a few of us who enjoy these financial matters quite as much as me. And I'm surprised that people have actually left at the point at which because I've been looking forward to this meeting for months, genuinely. But there is a serious point for me in that although this Treasury Management Mid-Year Review is a technical document, and it does refer to some matters which might not necessarily excite the public all of the time. It is nevertheless the case that how the Council manages its money is of fundamental importance. And we can see over the years what happens when we make assumptions about the way in which money is managed and the relative risks that are involved, that actually we can come a cropper on that. So, you know, we have seen in recent months the challenge of the gilts crisis, prompted by Liz Truss's ill-fated and very short premiership on pension funds and others. You know, we all, I think, are acutely aware of the challenge of the subprime mortgage crisis, and I can even think as far back to the Icelandic banking crisis, which was something that particularly affected local government. All of these things, before they happened, we were told, the risk's small, we don't believe that these things are going to happen, and when they did, they caused serious problems for the organisations that didn't take that risk seriously. So when I read in this update that the risk from the Thurrock Council loan, for example, is small and not really one to be considered because of the Public Works Loan Board and all of that kind of thing, I say a risk is still a risk and it must be treated as such unless there is some kind of guarantee somewhere that says that it isn't actually a risk at all. I do not think that we should ever be complacent whenever it comes to how the Council manages its money, because at the end of the day, this stuff is not particularly exciting until it causes real problems, and then everybody takes an interest. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Ferguson. Councillor Frew, you have the right to reply.
I'll address the point on Thurrock. There is absolutely no arrogance and no dismissal of the risks that exist in any loan that we offer as an authority. As has been set out to Councillor Ferguson multiple times, with the information that we have now about Thurrock, we would not offer them a loan. When the loan was offered to them, they seemed to be in relatively healthy finances from what could be told publicly. We now know that's not the case. And we have looked to tighten the assessment that we make of other local authorities. But there is also plenty of evidence to show that government does step in and does back up local authorities that are struggling financially. We have not seen a local authority renege on debts yet, and we have seen multiple times where the government has stepped in long before that is an issue. And the Section 151 officer at each local authority has the responsibility to make sure that the local authorities don't get close to that as well. So in terms of the kinds of loans that the local authority can offer, other local authorities are among the lowest risk debtors that we could take. And that's all I'd like to say, Lord Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Frew. You may as well stand there. Next one is yours also. Oh, sorry, does Council agree to... whizzing ahead. Does Council agree the report? Thank you. Pay policy statement. Councillor Frew, over to you.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I'm very pleased to present the pay policy statement. In a year that Labour administration has achieved real living wage accreditation for Newcastle City Council, tied with Sunderland to be the first in the region, I'm extremely proud of the work that we are doing for our employees. Savings have been found in year from restructure of senior leadership, and that will continue. We are committed very strongly to equal pay and ensuring that our council workforce is reflective of the city. There's been improvements in our measures on pay equality for gender and ethnicity, which we were the first local authority in the region to publish. And although improvements are being made and gradually, and those improvements are much better than the national picture, there is still quite a distance to go, and the administration are very conscious of this. We've just recently been having conversations with directors about this, and we want to do better. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Frew. Councillor Gray, you're seconding. Would you like to speak? Reserve. Thank you. I have Councillor Ferguson. Nothing to add? Councillor Gray, back to you. I can't hear. Oh, formally seconded. Lovely, that's great. Does Council agree the report? Agreed. The next report is changes to City Futures Board. Councillor Gray. Councillor Kilgour, you will be seconding, sir?
Thank you, Lord Mayor. The changes to the City Future Boards are in line for timely changes due to the fact that the board no needs to longer operate is the COVID Recovery Board, the creation of the Integrated Care Boards, and we welcome, from the discussions we had at Constitutional Committee, the addition of a representative from Newcastle College. I think it's important that we're seeing engagement from across the education sector in our city, not just from universities. And also it's important taking the changes due to the context of these, the ICS's, the new health and wellbeing strategy, and the council increasing research into wider determinants of health and health inequality, which is an important way of finding why things are affecting residents and how that can change. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Gray. Councillor Kilgour, would you like to speak or reserve? Thank you. Councillor Taylor.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. The Health and Wellbeing Board is extremely important, and its role has been enhanced by the new ICS and Integrated Care Board system. Obviously, we have a great responsibility for looking after the health of the city, the residents of the city, including the health needs assessment, and I have no problem with this report. However, I do have a problem with the fact that the City Futures Board failed to meet for over six months last year, and that 3 meetings were cancelled. The City Futures Board did include health and wellbeing, so it's very difficult to understand how that could have happened. How can we have had 6 months where there was no discussion on health and wellbeing in this city? I'd like an explanation, please.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Councillor Kilgour.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I'll have to look into the specifics of each individual meeting. I'm sure there were different reasons for each meeting, and I'll get back to Councillor Taylor and Council on that. I think at this point it's important to reiterate the points that Councillor Gray made. We have moved from dealing with COVID into a phase of COVID recovery. That's not to say it hasn't gone away. Please don't be complacent, colleagues. It's still out there, and it's getting worse in the city. However, it's important that our governance systems properly reflect what's needed by us, by our residents, and that also meet our statutory requirements. And as such, this is a sensible step forward in my view, and with that I'm happy to second the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kilgour. Councillor Gray, you have the right to reply.
Nothing from me, Lord Mayor.
Nothing to say, thank you. Does Council agree the report? Thank you. Agenda item number 8, council tax base and business rates base. This item will require a statutory named vote. I think we all had email notification of this, so is everybody prepared? Yes, please. Yes. Right, I will call upon Councillor Frew to move the report.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I'm happy to move the report. There are some important changes in here that I want to highlight. The first one may go a little bit unnoticed, as it is a continuation of the policy that exists for the council tax reduction scheme, but it's a very conscious decision to continue that in difficult circumstances, because we recognise the cost of living crisis that our residents are suffering. So the council tax reduction scheme banding automatically uprates by RPI in each year. We had a very serious discussion among the administration whether or not that is affordable in a year where that is double digits, and we said we have to continue for the sake of our residents. For those who are struggling in the face of fuel and energy costs, increase to the costs of their foods, and all of the government's shenanigans that have made that worse, that we must extend further help to those who are on the lower end of the pay scale. And so we have agreed that the council tax reduction scheme bands would increase by RPI this year by 12%. We have also tightened up some of our assumptions around council tax collection rate, moving that up to 98%. That should regularise funding that would otherwise come through the collection fund, and so it makes financial planning more coherent through the year and leave less fat to trim at the end. We are also getting ahead of the game on the second property premium. Legislation is due, and then we have to issue a 12-month notice. So we are getting ahead of the game in order to make use of this at the first opportunity. What I can say about business rates is that it's much more circumscribed by statute, and that government has provided some relief over the past 2 years to businesses, and that we have to continue with the statute as it is. However, the Labour Party is committed to reforming business rates from the root. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Frew. Councillor Greenhough, I have you down to second. Would you like to speak now? Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Greenhough. Councillor Ferguson, I'd like to call you to speak.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Lord Mayor, I believe standing orders provide for an opposition response to this item lasting 20 minutes, which I'm sure colleagues on the opposite side of the chamber would be delighted to hear. But whilst I don't intend to take the full 20 minutes, and I am tempted to, I do want to take the opportunity once again to speak on my concerns about council tax, business rates and the council tax support scheme, particularly this year in the midst of a cost of living crisis. Council tax now makes up roughly half of the net revenue budget in 22-23, with business rates making up the majority of the rest. This is a substantial change to the local government funding settlement of previous years, as the administration is fond of reminding us. This is a deliberate policy direction set by the Tory government, pushing the costs of local government onto local taxpayers. All of which would be totally reasonable if 3 things were aligned: the needs of a local authority area, the design of the scheme enabling sufficient revenue to be raised to cover those needs, and the ability of residents to cover the costs levied on them. The second point has been a matter of significant contention for several years, but the third is ever more acute. Council tax is a broken scheme. The calculation of rates and the ability of people to pay are so fundamentally misaligned as to be absurd. The cost of living crisis only provides more challenges for hard-pressed households. Who cares about this pressure on residents? Not the government, it seems, who are very happy to set council tax raising limits on the basis of supposed fairness and caring, without daring ever to consider serious reform of the system. Nor indeed administrations keen to levy the fullest possible amount whilst not challenging the status quo. I don't believe that anyone in this chamber seriously believes that local government isn't facing exceptional financial challenges. Local government has unquestionably borne a significant element of the brunt of public spending cuts. This is the government's choice. But should we not be realistic that in the midst of this disastrous economic challenge that we face, caused by the Tories' ideological pursuit of Brexit, bungled response to COVID, mangled approach to levelling up, and internecine squabbles, local government isn't going to get the kind of revenue support grants back that it had a decade ago? To pretend otherwise, to not grapple with fundamental transformation of how local government is funded and how local residents are properly supported to afford to pay for it, is a Labour failing as much as a Tory one. We should be shouting for fundamental council funding reform, not just pleading for more grants from government whilst the costs of council tax spiral ever upwards. And the same point stands on business rates. The retail environment has fundamentally changed, and yet the government appears fundamentally unwilling to grapple with how best to raise appropriate revenue whilst supporting local businesses to thrive. In the midst of a cost of living crisis, the council tax support scheme should not be an appendix to a technical report. The council should have a full debate about it. My colleagues, I understand, will speak to some of the specifics on this. The council is supposed to be responding strongly and firmly to the cost of living crisis, the challenges of heating and eating, the bleak economic fortunes we face in coming years as our standard of living tanks. So I welcome the increase in support laid out in the budget papers and in this paper, and the additional funding to support it. But where is the debate had about what measures are ultimately appropriate? Where do we discuss who needs support in this year in particular and beyond, who might not have received support in the past? Lord Mayor, I get that this is a gripe, but I watch this paper come to council every year. I watch it get nodded through, and I see nothing change. I have raised concerns and objections in previous years, and I listen frequently to the party opposite wringing their hands and decrying the financial position for local government and for local residents. But I ask council, should we not be at one and the same time clamouring for reform? Should we not be bringing our council tax support scheme out of the committee shadows and ensuring those most in need get the support they need through robust debate and consideration of the issues? We are ultimately now up against statutory timescales. Certain elements need to be dealt with tonight and passed. But this year I ask council, please, let's take a different approach after this. Let's go for real change.
Thank you, Councillor Ferguson. I will now call on members to take part. We have Councillors Hall, Morrissey and Ashby. Can I remind you that you only have 5 minutes, not 20. Especially Councillor Ashby. Just saying, just saying.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. To be clear, before I start, I welcome the measures on council tax support scheme, and I'm sure they will be welcome to those residents who are affected by it. However, I would urge the council to go further and to look at the enforcement policy as a whole, specifically looking at the example of Bedford Council, who did the calculations and realised that they were spending more on enforcement than they would be if they were offering a full relief scheme. I know this has been raised in committees before, and I hope that we will be able to have a look at that in the coming year. In doing so, I really think that that would continue the path that's already been started by the current measures to really support residents, particularly on the lowest incomes. Business rates, as Councillor Ferguson has said, continue to be an unbearable burden on physical retail. And now, the council benefits to an extent from increased business rates if they are in the city centre because of the accelerated development zone. And I realise that I sound like a little bit of a broken record tonight, but again, that intrinsically draws focus in terms of promoting new business away from the local communities and into the city centre. Now, I realise this is not a council policy, it is by stint of how the government laid it out, but what I would urge is, you know, Labour make much about the social values that get put into their financial decision making, and on this specific issue I would also urge you to have a look at, again, pushing that investment out of the city centre, pushing the focus out of the city centre, even if it's at the detriment of the council's finances to an extent, to try and promote businesses all across the city. That's all. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Hall. Councillor Morrissey?
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I've got 3 questions for Councillor Frew. In paragraph 2.1, the rate of collection is set at 98% for every council tax band, which is based on past performances. However, past performance is no guarantee now, as we are living in an unprecedented financial climate, with prices settling indefinitely at a higher level relative to incomes. Real household incomes have fallen and are set to remain so for some time. Household savings have fallen sharply, leaving many with little or no headroom to cushion the impact of persistently high prices of daily necessities. More than 1 million households will experience destitution over the coming months as their food and energy bills top their disposable income. It's estimated that consumers are now paying £575 more on average for their groceries than last year, and the latest data from the Food Foundation found that 18.5% of households experienced food insecurity in September. 1 in 5 households will have no savings by 2024, more than double the current level. In total, it's estimated 6.8 million people will be living paycheck to paycheck, with savings worth less than 2 months' disposable income. In these unprecedented times, when many of Newcastle's lowest income families will have to choose between eating and heating, if the collection rate falls below 98%, what are the implications for the council's finances and future service delivery? My second question is, the Working Age Council Tax Support Scheme as set out in section 4.1, which is calculated from the September RPI, would be a realistic indicator if we were in a stable economic environment, but we're not. This will have an adverse impact on families and their ability to budget, specifically since there won't be any extra support given, causing financial stress and hardship on those in the lower income brackets, including hourly paid, 0 hours contracts, fast food deliverers, and those in the gig economy. Is the administration cognizant of the fact residents who have never been in financial difficulty previously are now? And how will they be able to meet the increase when many are making the choice between eat or heat, but do not meet the criteria for discount? And thirdly, are there any plans to increase the discounted rate to families who have 3 or more children? The rates are currently one or two plus children, which in Band 1 equates to £80 per child, and in Band 5, £65 per child. This unfairly discriminates against larger families. As a mother of 4, I can testify to, children are not cost neutral. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Morrissey. Councillor Ashby?
Thank you, Lord Mayor. This report is entitled Council Tax Base and Business Rates Base. The paper is 177 pages long. I wonder how many amongst us have actually read all of it, let alone part of it, but you will have noticed that just 2 paragraphs, repeated once over, refer to the business rates base. If we are to have any understanding of the basis on which a significant portion of the council's income is predicated, we need to know a lot more. What does the cabinet member propose to do to inform us better, including the assumptions about the risk to business rates income as a consequence of the economic downturn and the changes in the economy towards internet-based businesses? When does he anticipate that the general business rates revaluation, scheduled for 1st of April this year, which is not mentioned in the report, will be implemented, and therefore, again, potentially affecting our income from that source? I want to agree with me that instead of the archaic basis for business rates, a land value-based system, which would incidentally reduce the burden on Newcastle businesses by some 10% at the expense of all those other regions in the country who are so much wealthier than us, is by far a preferable form of business taxation.
Thank you, Councillor Ashby. Councillor Frew, you have the right to reply.
Yes, thank you, Lord Mayor. I'll try to respond in turn. I guess we'll get the difficult stuff out of the way from what Councillor Ferguson brought up. There has been a change in the makeup of the funding that local authorities receive. And yes, the Liberal Democrats were in government during the sharpest cuts to local authority funding from central sources. And if you don't want to wear that, don't be a Liberal Democrat. Apparently there's no money, but apparently we in the Labour administration are going to be criticised for not matching it up now.
Please, you've been good all night. Please don't spoil it. Please, carry on.
What we have mostly heard tonight is about the need for fundamental reform in Westminster, not something that we have control of in Newcastle. We don't decide how the council tax system works, but I do agree with the opposition that it's not a very good system. The base is outdated, the system's unfair, and particularly is discriminatory against Newcastle. It has been pitched in favour of wealthier, southern and more rural areas, and Newcastle has suffered greatly over the past 12 years. And so I find it quite frustrating when Councillor Ferguson says that there's not been a willingness to challenge. This has been challenged many times over the years by the Labour Party, by Labour administrations in Newcastle. 2% increases to council tax each year has not even met inflation in most years. We don't have much of a choice when the government in Westminster say that they expect council tax income to increase by that amount. They've made that assumption in the finance settlement repeatedly. We don't make that choice. They say that's how local government funding works. And so I would love to challenge the government on that. However, we also need to fund our services. And when Councillor Ferguson goes on about where has been the discussion about who to help, Well, we have multiple ways of people accessing support. We have continued to provide a service helping people with their benefits. We've continued to provide discretionary housing payments, and we have been very innovative with the way that we deliver Household Support Fund, which over the past year has been very targeted at people who have not been able to find support in other ways. And I'm glad that the opposition are generally in agreement that our increase to council tax reduction scheme is the right thing to do, because it wasn't an easy choice to make. It's a choice that costs approximately £2 million. And so for us to continue here that there is no money, but this Labour Authority is making expensive choices to support residents through the cost of living crisis, expanding the scheme to more people, and to address Councillor Hall's points particularly, we do have a full relief scheme. People on the lowest incomes do not pay any council tax under this scheme. It's one of the few in the region, and we're very proud of it. And to address Councillor Morrissey's points about collection rate and the potential changes in coming years, it's based on a long-term collection rate, which has consistently been above 98%. It has only gone below that in the previous year and currently below in this year, as I understand it. We expect it to return to those rates in the long run. And the point that she was making about trying to help people who are above those thresholds, well, we are increasing the thresholds. That's why we've made the decision about sticking to RPI, to include more people who we are conscious that the problems and scourge of poverty are creeping into people who are in better circumstances. I'm honest, to be honest, I'm not really sure about Councillor Ashby's point about internet-based businesses. If you email me, I will look up and try to find out some information about that for you. I'm not sure how that will come through business rates in the city. I'm not sure how many significant internet-based companies contribute to our business rates. But also to say that many of the opposition said we need a fundamental reset of business rates. That is current Labour Party policy, and I said that in the start. So I wish I was listened to there. So, Lord Mayor, thank you for your time, and I urge the Council to agree the report.
Thank you, Councillor Frew. As I mentioned earlier, this will be a named vote, so can you all log in? Is there anybody who is going to have difficulty? Councillor Ashby? Councillor Keating? Are you in? Are you? Yes. Councillor Hindmarsh, how are you doing? You're having problems. Well, what we'll do, we'll take the electronic version, then we'll go around and take the in-house ones. So, how are we doing? Right, can those who haven't been able to vote put your hands up, please? Right, so Councillor Hindmarsh, how are you voting? Yes? Councillor Keating, how are you voting? Agree? Councillor Ashby, how are you voting? Yes? Any others? There we go. I feel like I should do me what's it on that one. Thank you everybody. That's agenda item 8 closed. Agenda item 9. Questions. We have one question marked for oral reply. Now, I believe this question has been received, so I call upon Councillor Byrne Did you want to?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, oh, right, okay. So it has been received, so it has been read. So Councillor Byrne, if you would like to respond.
Yes, Lord Mayor, I will. One second. I know I'm not having a great night for this, am I? Sorry. Council officers have had several constructive meetings with representatives of the taxi trade and as a result have made several amendments to the original operation of the scheme. These include allowing the private sale of vehicles as opposed to requiring the non-compliant vehicle to be used in a part exchange for a compliant vehicle, introducing an appeal process for any applicant who receives a response advising they are not eligible for a grant, affording a temporary exemption period for anyone who is going through the appeal process. Any applicant who receives a first letter of eligibility will be provided with an automatic exemption from CAS charges for a period of 120 days. This was increased from 90 days. It should be noted that it has always been the intention to protect those who are going through the grant process and supporting our efforts to improve the air quality in Newcastle from CAS charges. While we are providing an automatic 120-day exemption period, which will commence from 30th of January 2023, for any applications received prior to 30th January 2023, and 120 days from the date of the letter of eligibility after 30th January 2023. I hope everybody's keeping up with this. If the applicant has followed the grants process and through no fault of their own, they have not received their compliant vehicle within those 120 days, for instance, if there are delays in delivery, the applicant can apply for a further extension until they receive the compliant vehicle. For taxis, we also have a local discount licence that can be purchased for entry into the CAS. This allows entry to the CAS over a consecutive 7-day period at a discounted cost of £50 rather than the standard charge of £12.50 per day. Specifically with regards to accessible vehicles, we've included the opportunity for owners of wheelchair accessible vehicles, this is how they are referred to in the industry and our legal charge order, to apply for an exemption from CAS charges for a period of 2 years from the commencement of the CAS. The latest meeting with representatives of the taxi trade was held on 21st of December 2022, where the various amendments we've made to the scheme to accommodate their concerns were noted and appreciated. We have a wealth of information on the CAS scheme on our website, breathecleanair.com. This is split into easy-to-read categories. There are pages specifically for taxis, grants and exemptions, among many others. All the information contained within this response is available on our website. I also emailed all members yesterday with a briefing and update, which I hope will help them refer back to anything they didn't catch in this answer and obviously answer other questions as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Byrne. Councillor Campion, I take it you don't have... Yeah, Councillor Stone's going to have a question from Councillor Stone.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Byrne. Just following on from this particular question, particularly with regard to disabled accessible wheel taxis, is the Cabinet member aware of concerns in the sector that operators of accessible taxis are looking to sell their vehicles and to switch to other kinds of vehicles because they can't get the clean emission compliant vehicles of that kind are not readily available? And does she have concerns that that will lead to an impact on disabled people in the city not being able to access taxis?
Well, we were concerned about the availability of compliant wheelchair accessible vehicles, which is why we've given the 2-year exemption. So if any operator was replacing or changing their operation on the thought that they had to be compliant by January, then that would be an error. So I hope you will join me in just communicating that there is a 2-year exemption to deal with that shortage of appropriate vehicles. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Byrne. We have one question marked for written reply. This has been circulated. The response was included in the supplemental agenda and also published on the website. Agenda item number 10, Cabinet member reports. Sorry. All right. Danny. Yes, I think I'm just getting to that. Thank you. Sorry about that. Cabinet member reports. The first one, Vibrant City. Councillor Story would normally propose this one, but in her absence we have Councillor Kemp.
Yes, Matthew, tonight I am Councillor Story. Before I start, I don't believe it was stated publicly in the chamber, so could I, as Leader of Council and as Leader of the Labour Group, place on record our congratulations to Councillor Ferguson for the birth, to his family for the birth of his child.
Oh yes, excellent. Thank you. Thank you for...
I will attempt to present in a manner of which Leslie will, so please bear with me and go gentle. Obviously, I'll answer the easy questions and pass all the difficult ones to Leslie. So I am going to speak as the report was written by Leslie. My apologies to you all tonight that I will not be available to present my first report to Council. As the lead for a vibrant city, I take my role extremely seriously, and it was an extremely difficult decision to make not to attend tonight's meeting of full Council. I am proud of the work this Council has delivered and wanted the opportunity to talk to you about this and to respond to your questions and scrutiny. I would like to recognise the hard work of the staff at NCC, their support and creativity to keep on delivering high-quality services to residents in what is turning out to be an even more difficult year than the 2 years preceding. I would like to thank the many and varied VCS organisations across the city who work throughout the local communities to support individual and community resilience and well-being. The work of these organisations has been increasingly important during the last few years as they responded directly to COVID-19 in communities, and they now face increased demand on their activities and services due to the impact of cost of living crisis on residents in Newcastle. The Vibrant City portfolio has an incredibly diverse range of services and functions. This portfolio is focused on shaping safe, cohesive neighbourhoods and communities where everyone can participate in cultural and sporting activities. This portfolio links closely with Resilient City to ensure that culture is effectively integrated into our inclusive economic strategy, and with the Connected and Clean City portfolio to ensure we are creating green and more inclusive communities. The reason I am absent is Newcastle City Council have been requested to give evidence to the JHRC on asylum seekers and refugees. As well, one of only 4 local authorities selected nationally to give evidence on this crucial issue of our times, I know every one of you will agree that this is an absolute priority. It is imperative government hear from us in the North directly about the impact of asylum policy on both those who seek sanctuary, but also on our local communities and services. For too long, we have seen the North East as government's last priority for consultation, whilst at the same time we are the area that has taken more than its fair share of the burden and responsibility of providing sanctuary for those at risk. We do this because we are a warm and welcoming city. We do this because it is ethically and morally the right thing to do. But others must now be compelled to step up too, and this is the message I will be taking alongside showcasing the exemplar services we deliver. We are a vibrant city with a diverse mix of residents and a mission for tolerance and inclusion. A city of sanctuary, we are leading the way, but we cannot be the only ones. I have set out a number of key priorities within my portfolio, and making a clear and lasting impact on levels of antisocial behaviour in the city and improving residents' feelings of safety in their communities is high on this list. We must consider the interrelatedness of community safety issues whilst carefully balancing the interventions we deliver to respond not only to specific instances of escalation in antisocial behaviour and crime, but also the need for early intervention to prevent such instances developing. We have invested 1.2 million in tackling ASB, and we are already starting to see outcomes. Provided information to police who seized drugs, alcohol and weapons including knives, deterred groups of people from engaging in drug dealing, violence and exploiting vulnerable individuals, tackled antisocial behaviour at multi-storey car parks, referred people to the Council's victim support scheme, supported 154 people with a range of issues such as victims of serious assaults and people who were separated from their friends on a night out, and provided help to those who were sleeping rough. I've also set out the Council's renewed commitment to tackling sexual harassment, and work is well underway to deliver our new exemplar policy, as is the work to address equalities across all protected characteristics. On the specific issue of play areas, we are reviewing the city's current provision to understand how location, equipment and accessibility can be improved for children and young people. It will be important to consider alternative models and ways of thinking differently to achieve this within our budget. We continue to work with Urban Green to attract resources and visitors to Newcastle and engage residents in relation to sport and culture. We are proud of the high levels of outreach work undertaken with partners like the Newcastle United Foundation, and we know that these successful working relationships maximise our city's success and attract better and wider investment. Building relationships with the women's football has been a priority, and I was proud to attend the recent game at St James's Park, which attracted record numbers of 28,000 people. And I intend to build on this success and relationships to do more to support women into sport. We have recently been successful in attracting the GNR 10K to the city centre, and we are now entering into the exciting stages of laying the foundations of our once-in-a-generation Outer West leisure development. This £26 million capital project has been subject to much speculation, which has undermined at times the hope and opportunity the project brings to communities. I urge you all to take pride in this development. I believe the design concept, which combines a high standard of aesthetic beauty with green sustainable credentials, will not only improve the quality of life locally, but will have national significance. A standard which will be achieved that will be viewed as best in class, and we will have another iconic structure like the St. Angel and the Angel of the North that will hold its own and will symbolise our city. The residents of the Outer West deserve nothing but the best, and this is what they will be getting, the very best. And now, my words, I will do my best to take the questions, and any that I'm not able to answer, I'll be very happy to pass them on to Leslie for her to respond. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kemp. So we'll just go through the questions and you can answer at the end. Yep. Okay, thank you. We have 9 members wishing to speak. So if you can have questions, and as normal, not speeches. So if we can go Councillor Greenhough, then Councillor Campion, Councillor Sathian, then Councillor Hall.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and can I thank Councillor Story, Frew, Councillor Kemp, for the work that she and her officers within the portfolio have done. I especially welcome the work alongside Northumbria Police to tackle antisocial behaviour with the new Epic West Denton project. And I was pleased alongside Councillor Barnes to join that recently and see the work that they're doing to combat antisocial behaviour. But on the more substantive question is on the Outer West Leisure project, something that I've been proud to champion and something that I think is truly transformational for the Outer West, and I really welcome the comments that were made in the report. Can I just ask, while the project continues and is being further developed, can we outline how the council is going to ensure that during the construction residents can still access the library, other community facilities and the existing gym facilities to ensure that during that transition period they still have access to services in West Denton and across the wider Outer West?
Thank you, Councillor Greenhough. Councillor Campion.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. My question is around Kingston Park Stadium and access to the stadium. We have a fantastic facility in Kingston Park. However, public transport is lacking. The metro is a solid walk away, and the path to get from the metro station to the stadium itself is not well kept. It's not well signposted, and I think it discourages people from using the metro to get to Kingston Park Stadium. So can I ask what plans the Cabinet member has to improve signage so we can utilise a world-class stadium in Kingston Park? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Campion. Councillor Sathian, followed by Councillor Hall.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Thanks, Councillor Kemp. Can I thank Councillor Leslie, Councillor Story for this very thorough and informative report. Coming to the question, Lord Mayor, I am pleased that antisocial behaviour has been given a higher priority and funding has been allocated by Newcastle City Council to tackle this very important issue. Can Councillor Kemp tell us more about the victim support element of the programme?
Okay, thank you. Councillor Hall.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and thank you for the report and for our lovely stand-in as well. I'd like to see some figures around the value to the city from the council expenditure on culture. We have a net expenditure on culture. And I want to ask where the numbers are and the figures for things like increased footfall or increased economic activity or social benefit from this net expenditure. Cultural funding is extremely important, but we must still see these figures to ensure we are maximising that benefit.
Thank you, Councillor Hall. Councillor Shatwell, followed by Councillor Stone.
Sorry, you can do it here if you want.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Lord Mayor, my question is about Holocaust Memorial Day. So I'd like to start by offering congratulations from this chamber to the Newcastle-based Bosnian Muslim refugee Smajo Beso, who was awarded an OBE in this year's New Year's Honours List.
Not normally done, but yes, you can.
Thank you. His OBE was specifically for services to genocide education and commemoration. Smajo is the founder of the Bosnian Genocide Education Trust and has played a vital role over the last 8 years in organising Holocaust Memorial Day events in Newcastle to ensure that we learn the important lessons from the Bosnian genocide. Yesterday we saw fascists marching in the middle of Europe again. Serb nationalists with the Serbian foreign minister marched on the outskirts of Sarajevo. So commemorating and learning from the Holocaust, the Roma Holocaust and past genocides in Cambodia, Rwanda, Bosnia and Darfur is more important than ever. So my question is, could you tell us more about this year's Holocaust Memorial Day event and why it's so important the Council continue to host Holocaust Memorial Day? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Shatwell. Councillor Stone.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I can't remember just directly to Councillor Story because I chaired the overview and scrutiny meeting that took her report and I thought it was a very good and very thorough report and I wanted to pass that back to her. My question, though, comes up as a result of the recent announcement from the PCC in terms of her budget plans, which I gather will involve some significant cuts to unspecified areas of spending. And I was going to ask Councillor Story, perhaps Councillor Kemp can relay the request to ask that she seeks assurances in terms of the impact on the Council's activities and antisocial behaviour, that they will not be affected by the proposed cuts that the Police and Crime Commissioner is seeking to bring forward, which she hasn't yet set out what they're going to be, and I think we ought to have a right to hear what she's planning on that front. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Stone. Councillor Rahman, followed by Councillor Ashby and Councillor Ferguson.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Councillor Kemp, could you thank Councillor Story for a very comprehensive, excellent report. And I really commend her for the sterling work that she does within her portfolio area. Now, Elsick Ward, me and my colleague are proud to have provided funds to support the work around Holocaust this month. Councillor Shatwell just touched on some significance of that. Page 5 of the report, or 267 of the bundle, under safe and cohesive participant engagement, the report highlights anti-racicity, confirming that in October we committed to being an anti-racist organisation, a city that does not just tackle inequality but actively fights racism. I totally agree with this and I welcome the city's commitment. Sadly, embarrassingly and shockingly, there are some perpetrators of race and hate crime who still remain in public offices. Victims of race and hate crime are loudly and proudly calling out those perpetrators of race and hate crime to do the decent thing and just think, leave the office, just go. Can I come to the question and ask the cabinet member, or in this case, the leader of the council, if he is in support and in solidarity with all the victims of race and hate crime in the fight against race and hate crime? Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Ashby.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and thanks to Councillor Story for her first report, and my questions were indeed directed to her in that situation, and if the leader wishes her to respond, I'm more than happy for that to be done in writing. I was going to ask her if she's aware of the amount of foot dragging that's gone on over play areas, and I presume not. One of my first meetings after I was elected 8 years ago was to discuss the future of those in Parklands Ward. Nothing happened. There was a detailed report prepared some years ago. Nothing happened. We canvassed local support for change or even scrapping ultra-small areas of near zero play value. nothing happened, except for closures proclaimed and protected by tape, which is now biodegrading, and eventual removal of some rusting equipment. Although the upside of that is nature is re-establishing itself in some small patches. Maintenance, even down to flood prevention and painting, has been neglected. And I was going to ask her if she'd care to review this whole saga and inject some sense of urgency into the state of what are supposed to be safe and enjoyable space for young people.
Thank you, Councillor Ashby. Councillor Ferguson.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and I would just like to thank the Leader and Council for their well wishes regarding my son. I do intend to bring a motion to the next meeting of Council asking all 12-week-old babies to commit to reliably sleeping through the night and a predictable schedule of naps. Whether they'll pay any attention, we'll wait and see. I wanted to ask a question in relation to the Newcastle Fund. My day job is in the third sector, and although we don't apply for funding from the Newcastle Fund, I know from colleagues in the sector how vital and valuable it is in terms of supporting work in the city. So I just wanted to seek the Cabinet members' views on the future of the fund. There have been some reductions in the size of the fund in recent years and a recent refocus of the kind of bids that we were looking for from the Newcastle Fund, but I do know that the community and voluntary sector genuinely values it. So just interested in the potential future of the Newcastle Fund and what you could say about that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ferguson. Is there any questions you'd like to respond to, Councillor, or are you going to bat them all into Councillor Story's mix?
There's a few I'll bodge and the rest I'll pass. So it's probably the... Councillor Greenhough, well, firstly, I will obviously relay your kind words to Councillor Story. I agree. I think it's an excellent report for a very first report, so I will ensure that they are relayed. Councillor Greenhough, you asked about ongoing provision with regards to West Denton and the Out West Leisure Centre. It is a question we kind of anticipated, being hot off the press. But what I can say to you, and I did get a statement from Leslie broadly around the area of activities and provision in the interim. So provisions being made from March 2023 when the existing buildings will be demolished to have a temporary structure on site. The structure will be about half the size of the current library and community rooms, which it will be a single-storey building with a wide accessible ramp to the front door. It will contain a public area with well-chosen stock of fiction and non-fiction to borrow and for reference. There will be a dedicated children's area. There will be 4 public PCs, 1 with a scanner, a public printer, photocopier and a self-service kiosk. Whilst there is no space for a separate community room, shelving will be on wheels to allow the layout to be changed for events and class visits. We will also supply furniture for study and relaxation in keeping with our offer of warm spaces. We also intend to display information about the new building and update residents on the progress of the project. And as has been the case, Councillor Story will continue to keep councillors in the Outer West updated on a regular basis. So I hope that captures most of the issues for you. Councillor Campion, Kingston Park Stadium, I entirely agree. It's a huge asset for the city. With regard to the signage, could I suggest that perhaps I'm very happy to be engaged in some of those conversations, but along with Councillor Story and Councillor Byrne, I think it's a conversation that we need to have with the operators of Kingston Park themselves and look at what is the appropriate signage, what's actually their travel to the stadium's route, and ensure that we put the most effective signage to make it as accessible as possible for people to enjoy the events that take place at Kingston Park. It's something we want to continue to see thrive and grow. Councillor Sathian, antisocial behaviour and victim support. I can answer some. I mean, obviously we all know about the blight of antisocial behaviour, and I think we probably have a variety of definitions of antisocial behaviour, but broadly speaking, from my perspective, when we use the term antisocial behaviour, we're referring to behaviour that involves acting in a manner that causes or is likely to cause harassment, alarm or distress to one or other persons, and not necessarily the same household. With regard to the point around a dedicated victim support officer, they will oversee the entire victim support response. They will oversee the volunteer support scheme for all low-level victims of ASB, provide support to all medium high-risk victims of ASB, and act as a conduit between victims and the services where necessary to progress cases and promote safeguarding. And I'm pleased to say that the post will be operation in the coming weeks. Councillor Hall, the value to the city of cultural spending. I think it's an incredibly important question. We are, as members of the Chamber know, undertaking work on an inclusive economy strategy that encapsulates culture at its heart and as a key thread. But I'm actually in entire agreement with you, and I'm sure Councillor Story will be as well, about understanding really the value, but also how we exploit and expand what that value contribution is, and make sure that we understand the full network value rather than individual entities. We obviously have the Cultural Compact that was launched, and I think it's engagement with that compact, with the people who lead the individual organisations, but as the curators of the city, as you would, then we have a responsibility to set out our ambition, and I'm hoping that that will be very clear in our inclusive economic strategy. But we will also look at understanding the metrics and measurements, and we'll share that with Council. Councillor Shatwell, Holocaust Memorial Day. Little advert here, thank you very much. So if everyone hasn't seen the booklet, then please do. And I would encourage everyone to participate and engage in the programme. Holocaust Memorial Day is a hugely important day, but in many ways, Holocaust Memorial Day really sits with us every single day of the year. It's not a standalone, it's an opportunity to put true focus on the tragedy and turmoil that people have experienced. This year's programme explores the theme of ordinary people. Genocide is facilitated by ordinary people. Ordinary people turn a blind eye, believe propaganda, join murderous regimes. Ordinary people are persecuted, oppressed and murdered. Ordinary people were involved in all aspects of the Holocaust and in the genocides that took place in Cambodia, Rwanda, Bosnia and Darfur. Ordinary people were perpetrators, bystanders, rescuers, witnesses, and ordinary people were victims. In every genocide, the victims have few choices, the perpetrators have many. The theme this year highlights the ordinary people who looked away, who took part, who were persecuted. It encourages us all to ask whether ordinary people will choose to play a bigger part in challenging prejudice and persecution today. It's worth emphasising that our community's support for Holocaust Memorial Day and the Council facilitates the event, but it is our amazing community groups, our Jewish communities, our Gypsy, Roma and Traveller communities, our Bosnia and Rwanda communities, and indeed every community who has lived experience of genocide and who deliver the events. Holocaust Memorial is supported by our cultural sector who work with communities to develop the ideas and deliver the programmes. This year we have received more applications than ever before, which highlights the importance this event holds. Finally, Holocaust Memorial is important because we always need to remember and honour the victims of the Holocaust and all the genocides that have followed. And this is as present today as ever when we consider the Ukraine, Kosovo, etc. So I encourage everyone to participate and support this amazing programme of activities and really make ourselves clear that as a city of sanctuary, we stand in solidarity with those victims, current and in the future. Councillor Stone, as you say, I don't know what the specifics of the proposals are, but I'm quite clear that Councillor Story will be seeking assurances that it will have no negative impact on our ability to deliver our services, but I'll certainly relay it to her and make sure that it's shared in communication. Oh gosh, sorry, where am I? Councillor Rahman, your question about standing with victims. So I can say yes directly as leader of this council, I certainly will. And also I would say that having heard Councillor Story's thoughtful and insightful contributions in this chamber and in other places, I feel every confidence in stating that the answer is unequivocally yes. And this means calling out racism wherever it exists and in all its forms, believing and supporting the victim and victims. Racism impacts on all black and minoritized people, creating a toxic environment. And so this means identifying bias in all forms of structural inequality and being committed to its eradication. Our charter is a step in the right direction. There is no place for racism in this council or this city, This is enshrined in legislation and law, and rightly so, and we will take steps in setting a clear example. Councillor Ashby, I will ask Councillor Story to respond with a full update on play areas. We did anticipate the question, rather than me give a botched response, I think it needs a fulsome report on the whole of the programme and what's planned going ahead. And Councillor Ferguson, firstly, I wish you well on your somewhat ambitious, if not delusional, motion for next month. It's 15 years too late for me, but, you know, good luck. With regard to the Newcastle Fund, clearly the community and voluntary sector play an enormous contribution to the sustainability and vitality of our city and our communities, more so demonstrated throughout COVID, through mutual aid groups, through the activities of communities. I think the uptake and the outreach of so many groups across the whole of the city, embracing the cost of living crisis with us, offering their support through warm spaces and additional services. We are reviewing the Newcastle Fund in its whole sense to ensure that we are able to support the appropriate community groups and voluntary sector. We understand the value, we understand the challenges to their budgets just as much as ours, and we are engaged through the Community and Voluntary Sector Compact to ensure that what we produce is something that is fit for purpose for everyone. I hope I've done Councillor Story some sense of service, and anything that hasn't been captured, I'll make sure that is related.
Oh, she'll be proud of you, I'm sure. Well done. Thank you, Councillor Kemp. Does Council agree to receive the report?
Agreed.
Agreed. Our second report is Growing City. I call upon Councillor Copley to present her report.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Fantastic, it's okay. Okay. I think I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to present the report, Lord Mayor. And I think it probably goes without saying everybody in here will understand the sense of pride that I feel in bringing my first report for the portfolio to Council. And I'd like to thank the leader for giving me that opportunity too. We as an administration, and certainly I as portfolio holder, have made a commitment to put children at the heart of everything that we do in this city. So a lot of the work that I do within the portfolio, I do in partnership with Cabinet colleagues in terms of how my work interlinks with their work, and more of that as we go through. One of the most important things that I need to do right now is to thank everybody who is involved in working in Children Education and Skills Directorate. That's frontline practitioners, it's the leadership and the senior management team, the directors. They are truly committed and dedicated to the work that they do, and I think it stands testament to that in terms of everything that they have done throughout COVID and in this last year to get us all back into a regular way of working and living within the city. And the support that they've given to children, young people and their families goes beyond what we could have expected, and I think I would just like to have that recognised at the start of this report. It's a vast portfolio, it's huge, and sometimes I look at it and I think, my goodness me, there's a huge level of responsibility with it too, because there is a statutory function. We have a responsibility to keep our children safe, to keep our children secure, and where that's not possible within their families, we need to provide a high level of support and social work involvement to make things better, to improve things. And where that's not possible, children need to come into our system to be cared for however long that takes to resolve a situation for them. Obviously, the best place, we would all agree, for children to grow up is within their families. And where that's not possible, it's vitally important that they are provided with the highest quality of care and support. And I'm proud to say that I think all of us within Newcastle who are involved in supporting children and their families do our very utmost to make sure that that happens and that those services are excellent. Ofsted have rated us as good. Good for Ofsted is pretty good. We are ambitious and we will continue to strive to improve that. But I'm very, very satisfied with the level of care and support that goes on. The portfolio includes education, and I think it's fair enough to make a separate mention of colleagues that we have who work in schools and in the virtual school, working with our children who are NEET. We also have a number of providers who offer skills-based training, apprenticeships, and all of those are in that wider world of education. And I think we just need to think sometimes about the whole offer to children and to recognise the dedication that goes into helping students to reach their full potential and provide a secure, excellent environment for them to learn, but also to lay the foundations that will equip them to go forward into their adult life with confidence and the ability to be captains of their own destiny. Learning is a lifelong thing, it never stops, and I think teachers are excellent at sort of sowing those seeds, and it doesn't always come to fruition when children are sort of 16 and doing their exams and all the rest of it. For some people, it might be 45 before you actually get to the point where you get your degree and that sort of thing, or you find the job that is the fulfillment that you've been looking for. But I think it's around sowing those seeds and laying the foundations for ongoing education. And I think Newcastle's got a proud record in that, and I've certainly seen that happen in the last year. I work in partnership with my colleague, Cabinet colleague, Councillor Hay, who looks after the older end of the skills portfolio. And I'd like to thank him for his support in terms of making sure that we join those things up, and it hasn't been too difficult to make sense of it all. In terms of youth services, one of the proudest achievements I think that I had this last year was the launch of Every, and I know that a lot of work for that was done prior to my coming into position, so it's important I thank my colleague, ex-councillor Paula Holland, who she left big shoes to fill. It was unexpected that she wasn't elected, and she did an awful lot of work to make all of that happen. So Every was launched in July, and it brings together a huge partnership of people, really, with real commitment to work together to provide opportunities for our young people. But more importantly, or just as importantly perhaps, is the commitment that we have made to work with those young people, to engage them into participation and to give them a real opportunity to influence decision making. Oh, sorry, I'm way over time.
You are.
Is that my clock?
It is.
Oh dear, sorry. Okay, so basically I think you've all got the
gist of it.
I'm incredibly proud, and I'll open to questions. I'm sure everybody's read the report and have got loads to ask.
I'm sure they have.
I bet they have.
Right, we have a number of members who would like to speak. I'm going to call Councillor Samad, then Councillor Morrissey.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Copley, for this comprehensive report. The report gives us a picture of some of the excellent work happening in the city to provide opportunities to all children and young people. Lord Mayor, no one should be penalised or prevented from education. Everyone should be able to access education. Within the report, I am particularly interested in the work carried out within Schools for Sanctuary. So could Councillor Copley please explain a little bit more about this? Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Morrissey?
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Copley, for your first report. I'd also like to pay tribute to the extremely hard-working staff within the Directorate, who are professional, dedicated, and absolutely believe in providing the best they can for the babies, children, and young people of our city. The report highlights the vast range of work being done with a very diverse group of service users, and has some ambition for the coming 12 months. However, it is light on detail, specific outcomes and numbers of babies and children, and young people involved, and how success will be measured. I was very pleased to read about the forthcoming launch of our Mockingbird constellation here in Newcastle to further support our fabulous foster carers, and I really welcome the progress on building more high-quality children's homes which will meet the complex needs of some of our most vulnerable children. However, as you would expect, I do have some questions. As Councillor Copley's own data sources have shown, Newcastle still has the highest rate of child poverty in the country at 42.3%, again overtaking London. We are also the highest in every other category that measures child deprivation. Why? Why is that? Members on the other side have been in office in this city for 12 years, and is this really the best we can offer? You've had 12 years to strengthen partnerships, explore working with the private sector, and expand services to the voluntary sector, where we definitely do get more bang for buck.
Councillor, can I remind you that it's a question?
Yeah. So, our children and young people deserve better. And for 12 in every 30 children, this just isn't good enough. So why? You have a priority of involving more children in decision making. Is this going to include capturing thoughts and ideas where we actually find these children, which is often in voluntary groups, which would have no financial outlay? They're already there. Has there been an identified gap in creating further opportunities for babies and children? And if so, how will this be met? I absolutely agree with the concept of integrated support in neighbourhoods and the critical period of 1,001 days.
Yeah, thank you. Please, can you keep it to questions, Councillor?
It's very difficult to just pose a one-line question.
I understand there needs to be a backstory. But
so will it be considered in extending this provision to children at 6 and 8 and 10 and beyond, because children do grow? Can we have further information on the multi-agency family help teams, please, and where they will be, their geographic positions, their workload and projected outcomes? It's also very pleasing to see the new approach to therapies. Can we have some specific information?
Please, sorry.
Sorry, Lord Mayor. Can I just ask Councillor Morrissey, there's a lot there, and if there are questions that we can't address here in chamber tonight, could you make a list and send it to me, please? And I certainly will get back to you.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you for that,
Thank you. Thank you, colleagues. Councillor Ellis, followed by Councillor Kane. Councillor Kane. Oh, sorry, Councillor Ellis.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Copley, for what I found to be a very inspirational report. It is great to hear how we're actively listening to young people and taking their views seriously. I am interested to see how the Every scheme, which you have focused on in the report, develops. You also, though, mentioned the Toon Teen takeover, where young people were involved in budget and recruitment decisions. Can you tell me what came from that initiative, please?
Thank you, Councillor Ellis. Councillor Kane?
Yes, thank you, Lord Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Copley, for the report. Once we deciphered what her portfolio title actually meant in practice, I do wish we could get back to sort of more bland, run-sale type titles. 3 years ago, Lord Mayor, I raised the case of a lovely young lady who lived then in Usburn Ward called Rowan, who has Down syndrome, whose parents had felt they had to move to North Tyneside in order to meet Rowan's needs in secondary education. And I was wondering if any progress had been made in a more personalised, joined-up approach to send provision in Newcastle, so this doesn't happen, because Rowan's parents told me it's a well-trodden path at that time. The other question I had is, post-COVID, there is a backlog of children requiring support on mental health, and I was wondering if the council has been able to do anything to support the work by the NHS and other providers and reduce referral times in particular. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Kane. Councillor Chisholm, followed by Councillor Hall, then Councillor Keynes. Oops. Councillor Hall, can I ask you just to take your question, then we'll give Councillor Chisholm a chance to get round.
Yes, absolutely, Lord Mayor. Thank you for the report. It's a little disappointing that this is not shown in the report, but it has been reported to committees that the Sen Transport is overspending by about £2 million this year. Likewise, Children in Care overspending by 2.4 million this year. Now, I appreciate that this is due to increased demand that must be met, but on the back of that, how can we justify the significant cuts to budgets and staff capacity that are proposed for next year?
Thank you, Councillor Hall. Councillor Chisholm.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Copley, for this very important report. My question to you is about child poverty and measures we're going to take to combat child poverty in this city. We continue to get bad news about child poverty. We heard towards the end of last year that over 40% of children were found by the Child Poverty Commission looking into the North East, that over 40% of them are living in poverty. That's a very serious statistic. And then we heard this week in a report from Shelter that in the region there are about 560 children sleeping rough in the city linked to housing and poverty crisis. So I'm glad that combating child poverty is a priority for the council. What I'd like to hear a bit more about is what the plans are going forward, and could you outline what the council's plans are maybe over the next year for changing child poverty? Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Keynes.
Oh, sorry. It's 560, not 360 children.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I just thank Councillor Copley for a comprehensive report and follow Councillor Ellis's comment that it definitely, for me, was inspirational. During the pandemic, community-based facilities and community buildings proved to be a lifeline and a focus for support activities with our communities across the city. My question's about community hubs. On page 7 of the Growing City report, talk about one of the priorities in the next 12 months is to expand the community hub network and the delivery offer within family hubs, including the formal opening of refurbished buildings, bringing services together in neighbourhoods across the city. What I'd like to know is, could you give further detail as to how you see this expansion proceeding and what you hope it will accomplish? Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Copley, would you like to respond tonight?
I'll certainly do my best. I'll do my best to stick to a better time scale as well.
Thank you.
Apologies, everyone. Okay, some questions actually run together, so when we've got the questions answered, I'll just stop. Okay, Councillor Summit, Schools of Sanctuary. I think it's a vital thing. You know, we're a city of sanctuary, we're very proud of that. And I think in terms of the schools in the city and their efforts to support those children who and the families who need that additional support, it's really, really important. There's a lot of momentum around the Schools of Sanctuary work in the Newcastle city, and as we said in the report, a number of schools have put applications in, a number have gone through the process, and I'm really pleased that we've got 13 schools registered, and they are all primaries, but there's a good spread across the city. And the offer, I mean, there's Broadwood, the Central Walker, Christchurch, the list is in the report, so I won't go through it. But the offer that's available are looking at the resources that are available in the school and tailoring those to the children that need to access them. So there will be additional work done within the curriculum, weaving in themes relating to culture of the refugees, and looking at the impact of forced displacement. We know that children come into the city having experienced significant trauma, loss, and the work that happens within the schools goes some way to trying to help families deal with that. Looking at things as simple as a school library and making sure that you've got the right resources in there, having staff work with the families, work with the parents, looking at language learning, that sort of thing, and also ongoing training for staff and other people who are within the school to make sure that people have a thorough understanding of what those children and their families have faced. Displays are put up in schools, resources are available that promote welcome, the use of language, and also I think we all benefit from additional cultural experiences and mixing. So I hope that answers your question. If there's anything further, come back to me, please. Councillor Morrissey, right. I will get back to you with a fuller list if you tell me exactly what it is that you would like some clarity on. I absolutely agree that child poverty is disgraceful. You know my views on this. I cannot say it any louder than that. Funding, the problem with funding is it's a national problem. If the government gives us the money, we will spend it, and we will spend it well. We know what needs to be done for our children and their families, so that money would be well spent down to every penny. Children deserve the very, very best, not just good enough. They deserve the best, and that's our ambition within this administration, to deliver that. It's not easy with the resources that we've got, and I go again to the value that we have within our staff team and the leadership team within the officer group. They are committed and they wring the best out of every penny. Councillor Frew, make sure that we do that, so there's no getting away from it. So there's that element to it. I'll come back. Mockingbird, we're really proud of Mockingbird, and I look forward to seeing how that rolls out. That will provide foster care hubs and will support the foster care arrangements within the city. Councillor Kane, SEND, absolutely. Special educational needs, disability, we all have a commitment to ensure that we offer the best services and that everything is accessible and inclusive. And I'm really upset when I hear that children can't access that within the city for whatever reason. That was 3 years ago. I would like to think that we have improved things. Certainly the current director and myself have done a lot of work recently with the team to look at the provision across the city and how things can be expanded. You know, there's opportunities there, and there's always chances to do things differently. So there is review. Review happens constantly. You know this. We're always looking at things. So we are looking at that. And I think we've had some success in a personalised approach. We do look at the individual needs of children. That is crucial. How can you design anything without looking at the needs of children? There is a backlog, you're right, in terms of mental health referrals. And that's not a new problem, is it? We're all being aware that mental health services for young people have always been a challenge. And unfortunately, as you all know, some of this isn't within our gift. If we could choose to spend the money, we would. But we haven't got it because somebody else has decided not to give it to us. So it's a real problem, but it's one personally I can't fix. And with the best will in the world, neither can the rest of the administration. However, come another day, there might be some change, mightn't there? Let's hope. Sorry. Councillor Chisholm, child poverty. Yeah, we are doing a lot in the city. One of the biggest things we could do is, and we have achieved this already, is the accreditation to become a living wage employer. That will make a huge difference to families, to the pound in their pocket. We are working on an anti-poverty strategy, which will, again, make a big difference, looking at what we can do, what partners can do, and how we come together with the voluntary sector and other people to make a difference. We have welfare rights officers available in the family hubs and in schools. That's where they're going into now, to actually maximise the income that's going into families. That will make a difference, to look at debt relief orders and all the sorts of things that can really, really help with poverty. We also have Household Support Fund funding, which is being distributed. Again, that makes an impact. And partnership with VCS, absolutely. The delivery of learning and training opportunities to young people, but also to their parents, is vitally important, because the route out of poverty is quite often through work. Well, when you can get a well-paid job. And that's a challenge at the moment, isn't it? How am I doing for time, Lord Mayor? Sorry, I'm going.
Well, if you could...
Councillor Cairns, I think she's my last one. Community-based, I think we're starting to get into that now in terms of what the family hubs can look like. What we know works best for families, if we think back to the halcyon days of Sure Start, children's centres and all the rest of it before massive cuts that happened, is neighbourhood-based services that are accessible and inclusive and people feel comfortable going into, and that's what makes a difference. We are also using those spaces now as warm spaces, so that's extending the offer, which again helps with the poverty element and people being, facing hardship really in the levels of deprivation that's rising. So the community hubs will have an offer which includes community midwifery, health visitors, welfare rights, early years work with children, babies, and also the early help workers, the early help service. So we'll pick up families and children needing support before it escalates to where we need that specialist intervention from the social work teams. And hopefully, in the longer term, that will have a positive impact on our budgets. Because if we spend the money right at early intervention stage, then we see the benefits later on. But first, we need the money. Now, one final point, Lord Mayor, if you don't mind. Last time I was up here, I invited the then Prime Minister, Liz Truss, to come and have a look at poverty in the city. She didn't come, but guess what? Guess what? I would love to invite the current Prime Minister. And that's an open invitation, and I'm sure the leader would agree with that. Yeah? Okay, so if we can get that invitation out, that would be wonderful. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
It's noted. Thank you, Councillor Copley. Does Councillor agree to receive the report? Oops, Councillor Hall. Quick.
I appreciate we've run out of time, Lord Mayor, but I didn't actually receive a response to my question regarding overspends in this year and justifications for cutting spending next year.
Well, if you make sure that Councillor Copley has it noted, I'm sure she will. Right. Well, get back to him, yeah.
Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Hall. Agenda item number 11, appointments. There are no appointments this month. We now move on to the motions. The emergency notice of motion. I will call upon Councillor Stone to move this motion, and it will be seconded by Councillor Ferguson.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, for graciously allowing this motion tonight. I imagine there will be opportunities for further debate on the devolution deal in times to come, but the opposition felt it was appropriate to acknowledge at this meeting of council that we didn't let it pass by without referring to it. It's in the interests of our region that the North East secures funding to allow it to move forward with to build the prosperity, the skills, the infrastructure and the resilience of the region. We may still at some point want to ask for some more funding, but this represents an opportunity for incremental future deals to accelerate that process and add more responsibilities, powers and resources. And it's an opportunity for a greater approach to a greater regional cooperation, and I hope that we in Newcastle will be able to play a constructive part in that. We may have started down that road already with the North of Tyne, but I think it's fair to acknowledge that the region might have missed a trick in not coming together sooner. The North East could have been in a similar position to Greater Manchester and the West Midlands in already having greater powers, including over transport, and be several years further ahead in terms of getting on with the job. It could be argued that we've allowed other regions to get a considerable head start on us here in the North East, but the opportunities for this region are significant, and if we set aside the rivalries and the mutual mistrust that have never been too far away in the past. The principle is a very good one. The funding is absolutely not ungenerous. There is still, though, quite a long way to go to convert the deal document into an arrangement which commands the consent and the support of the region's citizens and delivers effectively. Aspects of the deal may not have been our preference, and we doubt there is a great clamour for a regional mayor, but the deal on offer has come with strings attached. But we do understand this is the only game in town, and if we want to take the money, we have to take the deal on offer. There isn't an alternative or better offer looming on the horizon. There may well be some differences of opinion between and within political parties on these issues within the region. Recent comments from over the road could be viewed as a rather lukewarm welcome to what is on offer. My party is very much in support of devolution, but we feel this deal is less about giving power to the people than it is about giving power to the existing regional establishments. As Liberals, we believe in the principle and the importance of opposing concentrations of power and seeking to distribute it more widely. We know we're not likely to call the shots in these new arrangements, but we believe strongly in the principles of legitimacy, accountability and scrutiny, and we think more work remains to be done to ensure the new structures embed those principles and to ensure the deal commands full public support. Newcastle has adopted the principle in recent years that scrutiny should be chaired by opposition councillors. That principle has been carried over to the North of Tynes arrangements. It's not a principle that will be followed everywhere in the region, but I hope that we can emphasise that this is working well here in Newcastle, and we would like to see it be extended to the regional arrangements as well. The strength of scrutiny here has been recognised by the LGA's peer review. We have a strong record on best practice as well in budget scrutiny and consultation. This motion is intended to convey a sense of cross-party agreement that these principles are sound ones, and it will be in the best interest of the new regional arrangements that it also seeks to adopt them. The Devo deal will be responsible for very substantial sums of money, and it's in everyone's interest for it to deliver successfully and transparently. There may well be further debate in coming weeks and months on the priorities of the new combined authority, on the details of the governance for it, and of the public consultation process required to secure agreement for it. There may even be a chance to debate the meaning and the substance of some of the more unusual concepts set out in the sales pitch. This process must be open to all of us in the region, rather than the deal negotiated just between the leaders and Mr Gove, in which the rest of us get little or no say and little opportunity to ask questions or hold decision makers to account. I hope that we can agree on that basic principle, and it's important to ensure these principles are wired into the new arrangements from the start. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Stone. Councillor Ferguson, do you wish to speak now or reserve the right? Okay, thank you. We have an amendment to be moved by Councillor Kemp, and this will be seconded by Councillor Kilgour.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I thank the opposition for bringing this emergency motion on the develops of devolution and recognising and appreciating the importance that devolution can bring. And as the motion notes, the detail of the additional monies and potential powers which will be brought to the region. I'm a wee bit confused about quite what the purpose of the emergency motion is, because the documents that you're referring to actually set out and answer quite a few of the points that you raised, Councillor Stone. But I'll give my fulsome response now, sir. Fundamentally, let's be clear. This is not what levelling up is about, not in a way I would understand. Devolution doesn't reverse austerity. The investment fund is a small fraction of the amount lost from local council budgets under austerity cuts since 2010, and it does not provide the long-term secure local government funding needed by local councils to deliver the essential services councils provide every day. But I'm a pragmatist, and I support this proposed deal, and I'm happy to agree to what has been secured through long consultation, dialogue and discussion with the government being made available to go through to thorough public consultation. After all, our role is to serve the communities we represent, and the public consultation process will enable the people of Newcastle and across the other council areas to have their say on the merits or otherwise of the proposed deal. The emergency motion notes that the deal is reserved to the council's executive. This, I should point out, is a part of a process agreed by the leaders and chief officers of all 7 local authorities, including the very lately joined Lib Dem-led coalition of County Durham, and is consistent with the arrangements for previous deals. I should also highlight that the timescales have been shortened somewhat due to the delayed decision by the Lib Dem-led County Durham to participate, having previously held a long-standing commitment to a standalone county deal. So I hope that now that they are part of the party, they will engage and keep to the processes. This process is one which is uniform for all the constituent local authorities initially taking the report to our respective cabinets. The intention is that in the week commencing 16th of January, all 7 local authority cabinets consider a report which will be essentially the same report for each local authority, though I believe a little more detail in the County Durham because they haven't been part of the discussions for quite some time. And we're recommending that Cabinet will endorse the minded to deal in principle, agree the findings of a review that the proposed governance changes, i.e. the abolition of NECA and the creation of a new mayoral combined authority for the whole region, would meet the necessary statutory tests and agree to go out to public consultation on a scheme for these changes, which is a requirement of the statutory process for the Secretary of State to make the order to implement these changes. So the report to Cabinet next week is asking that each constituent authority agrees the principle of consultation, and I respectfully suggest, Lord Mayor, that this addresses a number of the points raised in the motion. I do not doubt, as Councillor Stone has raised, that there are a range of views about the effectiveness and value of the deal, and this, of course, is the purpose and principle of the public consultation. The points being made about strong governance are accepted and welcomed, and I will ensure that are built into the discussions should the consultation process result in a desire to progress with the deal as set out in the report. As an administration, we have made absolutely clear our commitment to transparency and strong and robust scrutiny, as should be expected in any public body, and I will ensure that this view is expressed at the appropriate time, but it does not seem sensible to predetermine the outcome of the public consultation by defining in detail at this juncture. So I hope that Council can agree to the process as set out in the Cabinet report and agreed across all 7 constituent local authorities, and that we keep to the timetable which will commence the public consultation on the content of the proposed deal the week commencing 23rd of January. I therefore, Council, reject the emergency motion and urge you all to support the amendment, and I would encourage all Council to do so to enable that the people of this city have their opportunity to engage in the consultation process. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kemp. Is the amendment agreed or do we need a vote? Oh, sorry, we haven't had our speakers. Sorry, I'm trying to whiz ahead here. Seconded by Councillor Kilgour.
I'm happy to go straight to the vote if you prefer, Lord Mayor. Thank you, Lord Mayor. I'm pleased to be talking about devolution tonight, and I'm glad of the opportunity that this motion and our amendment bring to recognise how important the announcement of this minded-to devolution deal is for Newcastle, and indeed for all 7 North East councils. As Councillor Kemp's just highlighted, the proposed deal is in no way mitigates the impact of 12 years of coalition and Tory austerity, nor does it ease the significant pressures that have combined to result in a public sector on its knees. It does, however, represent a significant shift of powers, of funding and responsibility that will directly impact our residents, communities and businesses by building more and better jobs, more homes, increasing skills and investment, whilst taking major steps towards net zero. I'm proud of the part that this Cabinet has played in uniting the spirit of the LA7 and challenging our partnership to be as ambitious as we can to bring £4.2 billion of additional investment to our region. And I'm proud of the actions of our leader to secure both accelerated negotiations on the additional powers afforded by a trailblazer status and also including the creation of a green superport in the deal. I'm glad that the motion moved by the opposition focuses on the sovereignty of councils to govern, manage and scrutinise delivery of the deal. Our amendment recognises the transparency and fairness that proper processes will bring, and I would highlight particularly the significant progress that has been made by this administration to date in improving and embedding the critical role of scrutiny to support sound and transparent decision-making and better service delivery across the council. The arrangements for overview and scrutiny in the proposed new combined authority are, as the original motion describes, still to be established by all participating councils in the LA7. This development process will be thorough, and Cabinet will, of course, reflect on the effectiveness and success of scrutiny arrangements here in Newcastle. Our Cabinet has delivered on its promise to put residents at the heart of everything we do, and our input to the proposed deal is no different. We have steered direction so far to prioritise consultation and communication, and Council can be assured that we will continue to represent everyone in our city fairly and inclusively. I second the amendment, Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Kilgour. Councillor Greenhough, followed by Councillor Huddart and Councillor Ashby.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Some members might be aware that 18 months ago I started a research master's focusing on devolution and democratic engagement in combined authorities. So sadly, scrutiny arrangements across various combined authorities has been a part of my life for quite some time. I welcome that there have been progress on this devolution deal. It will never replace 13 years of austerity or the diversion of regional development funds since Brexit, despite the promises that were made during the campaign. But it does give us a direction and an opportunity to bring power closer to communities and to better shape policy, to give our region the tools to decide what we want for our future. For me, this means seizing these opportunities that our region has to offer and to shape our destiny with a greener, fairer economy for our residents. I know that the leaders of the LA7 continue to work towards the most appropriate scrutiny arrangements, and like the leader has outlined in his speech and in the amendment, the region will work towards appropriate and strong scrutiny arrangements. And given our experience in Newcastle, I know that they will be at the foremost of what the leader puts forward. I welcome what has been achieved in getting to this stage by the leaders of the local authorities towards the creation of the new mayoral role covering the region. With the right leadership, the right tools and the right scrutiny arrangements, and more importantly, a Labour government, this deal can help set us on the trajectory for a truly transformational programme for the region. I support the amendment, Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Greenhough. Councillor Huddart.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I'll try not to repeat anything which has been said by others, but I do think we have to welcome this document after the endless discussion and debate which has gone before it. And while it's very tempting to look at the massive sums on offer, we must remember that the billions of pounds quoted will be worth far less in 10 or 20 years' time. And I am not certain if the millions quoted will actually pay for an extension or two to the metro system or finish off the dualling of the A1, as well as developing the smaller railway lines such as the Leamside and West Durham ones. I do agree with other speakers that we need much more detail about the consultation process, as well as the overview and scrutiny arrangements. Some years ago, via the Regional Assembly, we had several regional strategies, for instance, a spatial one, an environmental one, which actually helped most of us move forward on these matters and to take some broader and greener views. And although we might not have agreed on everything, we did take notice. I would have liked to have read more about the way the work of the LEP is to be included, and if their broad vision for this area will be maintained or continued. We need to ensure that those proposals offer good prospects for financial inclusion, better quality jobs, especially in the business sector. And I'd also like to have read more about the new roles for the business and strategy advisors and where these individuals will come from. It's clear that the proposals give emphasis to interdependent areas. We can't build new without demolition and clearance. We also can't build new housing or develop new business sites without clear proposals for decarbonisation and green investment. And we can't develop new industries and business parks without transport links and the input of our education services. I'm uncertain if the proposals offer broad and inclusive platform for the development and democratisation of the governance processes, but I would also like to think that as part of the consultation process, we should hear from some of the other combined mayoral areas about the lessons that they've learned and the questions they'd wish they asked. I actually spoke to a colleague from the West Midlands this week, and he told me what they got was a mixed bag. Some of it good, some of it not so good. So in short, the proposals need more clarity, consultation and discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Huddart. Councillor Ashby.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. While I never look a gift horse in the mouth, the assertions around the prospects for funding via the new LA7 Metro Mayor need a huge dose of salt. It's nothing like as valuable to this city and region as is required to lift it from being the poorest English region still, nor is it anything like what was available in the past. In the 1 year, 1988-9, the Department of Trade and Industry gave more than 3,000 businesses here £188 million in today's money in regional development grants. Then those who put service went in for semi-permanent bureaucratic deck chair shuffling. The Tyne and Weir Development Corporation lasted from 12 years from 87 to 98, cutting through bureaucracy. It was scrapped after leveraging more than £2.5 billion, creating thousands of homes and 10 million square feet of new buildings, often on derelict land, and helped to create large numbers of jobs. One North East ran from 1999 to 2012, scrapped, although its results looked unimpressive compared with what had gone before. The North East Combined Authority lasted 4 years before being replaced by the North of Tyne Mayor, largely attributable to Labour leaders in the region being unable to agree among themselves. The current mayor's funding has hardly moved the dial in Newcastle. Our annual turnover is £1 billion a year, for context. Before the contract that was Brexit was perpetrated on us, and I remind councillors that Newcastle was the proud first Remain city, European matched funding was worth over £500 million in today's money to us. Talk of replacing it has been pretty much hot air. So we've been here over and over before, with the only constant being less and less money. So why on earth should we believe that this latest venture will last 30 years? Or that the billions being bandied about, before inflation is taken into account, will actually arrive? I suppose we can reasonably sure that about £100 million for skills and regeneration will come for a few years. And thank you, taxpayers, for that. But press statements and glossy presentations won't make permanent change or dependable cash. And my view is that the Who sang in 1971, just before I moved to the North East with my family, just like yesterday, I'll get down on my knees and pray we don't get fooled again. I can only hope this isn't true. What we need is major, reliable and long-term transfer of very substantial funds from the richest regions to the poorest, not just variable crumbs from the rich people's table, including our own version of the Byrne formula.
Thank you, Councillor Ashby. Councillor Ferguson, would you like to? Thank you.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. It seems the current devolution deal is the only game in town. The region needs and deserves crucial investment, and the government, it seems, wants this to be the way it happens. We all might have some reasons to be sceptical or cautious, and indeed even some of the negotiators from the region have publicly expressed their doubts about the deal that they themselves negotiated. I'm not sure on that basis why the amendment of the motion omits our contention that there are divisions within and across political parties. It just is what it is. As Councillor Ashby notes, game-changing deals have been announced for our region before. North of Tyne Combined Authority, anyone? But we should all welcome greater funding for the North East. We should also hope for joined-up thinking across the region. It's vital, but it's not always been in evidence, and I sincerely hope any deal facilitates that. The key question to my mind, though, is how we can ensure good outcomes and genuine impact. We all, as elected representatives of the residents of Newcastle, have a responsibility to ensure this deal works, that taxpayers' money is spent well, and that we see the value of it. There are questions still to be answered in the proposal papers, particularly in relation to scrutiny, which is why we brought the motion in this form. We're realistic about what will happen from here in regards to the process, and that's why we have brought forward what we believe to be a realistic and constructive motion to input into the process of consideration and consultation. Of course, we're aware that the Lib Dems in County Durham supported the regional deal, and I wouldn't have thought that that would have been seen as a point of criticism, because my understanding was it was Durham Labour who didn't want to play ball and who have fought tooth and nail consistently throughout to go their own way and do something entirely different, not necessarily the best for the region. But this motion is intended ultimately to be a friendly one, so we can perhaps just leave the Durham position as it is. Effective checks and balances in political governance are key. Robust scrutiny is one part of offering that. There is value in the Newcastle model, and we'll continue to advocate for effective scrutiny arrangements based on what we see here working well. Finally, just to say, Lord Mayor, I hope this isn't the last time that we talk about devolution in this chamber, about the deal and about how it works. I think it is so important to get it right that we keep talking about it now and beyond. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ferguson. Councillor Stone, would you like to reply?
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I'm grateful for the opportunity to have had the debate here tonight, and I am grateful to Councillor Kemp as well for his response and for the amendment. I accept that the Councillor Kemp has noted the deal agreed by the leaders and the chief executives and the government reserves the right to agree this to the cabinet, and I recognise that's what's been arrived at. So that's what we're being presented with. But I do think, however, that this is a significant change to government structures in the North East, which will affect, obviously the 7 local authorities, a great many councillors, and obviously hundreds of thousands, probably millions of residents of the North East. And I think it's, I can see why the government and perhaps the council leaders are not keen on the idea that this would go to a regional referendum, because obviously it might go the way that the last one did in the North East, which was not an entirely happy experience, as Councillor Keating has reminded me just a moment ago. But I do think it would have been preferable to have brought the decision to agree the deal before full council rather than just the cabinet. I do hope it will not set a stamp on the way the new mayoral combined authority will operate, in that the leaders will reserve powers unto themselves with the new mayor, and the rest of us don't have a role or a great say in proceedings. But finally, Lord Mayor, I really this is not a joke. This is not me having a go. But I would generally be interested to read Councillor Greenhough's master's dissertation, or perhaps even his PhD thesis in due course, because I for one am personally quite interested in the subject. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor.
I will be in the second. I mean, I do note Councillor Ferguson's point. There was a slight omission of a certain paragraph in there about recognising the diversity and difference in views amongst parties and within the region on the deal, but that's been taken out of the motion, but taken out of the amendment rather. But on the whole, I'm willing, for the sake of brevity, to agree the amendment. And take off on that basis.
Thank you, Councillor Stone. So, is the amendment agreed? Agreed. Thank you. Moving on to the next one. Warm homes. Oops. Oh, have I? I'm whizzing ahead again. So the amendment was agreed. Was the emotion? Is the motion agreed as amended? That's the word. That's the word. Right. Thank you. The next one is warm homes. Councillor Taylor, would you like to move this motion?
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Colleagues, our great National Health Service, first proposed by the Liberal William Beveridge in 1942, is under serious threat due to underinvestment and the failure to deal with the rising demand for both healthcare and social care, and successive governments' failure to reform social care. The result is that hospitals across the UK are struggling both with too many admissions and beds blocked by those fit enough for discharge but with nowhere to go. At present, a huge number of respiratory illnesses are adding to the pressure, including COVID, flu, and other viral infections. And in addition, the UK is facing a cost of living crisis, with energy prices on the rise and millions of households across the country struggling to keep warm. Even with the government energy bills support scheme, it is estimated around 7 million homes, or over 25% of households, were in fuel poverty by the end of 2022, up from 13% before the current crisis. In this situation, a cost-effective scheme that helps to stop patients needing to go into hospital should be a top priority. Living in a cold home puts millions of people with health conditions at particular risk of harm. Health conditions such as respiratory diseases like chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, emphysema, chronic bronchitis or bronchiectasis, cardiovascular disease, and illnesses affecting the immune system such as arthritis, asthma, or those undergoing chemotherapy. Many people with these conditions have frequent admissions to hospital, usually with respiratory infections, and it's estimated that living in cold homes costs the NHS £860 million a year, and at least 10,000 people die every winter in the UK because their home isn't warm enough. So we welcome the results of a pilot scheme which allowed GPs to prescribe heating to patients at increased risk of hospital admission. The warm home prescription pilot, which was trialled in Gloucestershire last year, allowed NHS teams, including social prescribers and complex care teams linked to GP surgeries, to identify eligible people. They were then contacted directly by their local NHS and offered a warm home prescription, delivered by local energy advisors who directly credited money onto the recipient's energy bill. Once credit was applied, patients could immediately start heating their homes to a healthy temperature between 18 and 21 degrees. Further home energy upgrades were arranged where possible. In contrast to the NHS cost of £860 million per year I mentioned before, the pilot scheme cost on average only £647 per person. These are some of the comments from those involved in the trial. I normally end up in hospital in the colder months. I tend to get pneumonia, pleurisy, flu and stuff, which does land me in hospital. The last time it also almost landed me in intensive care. This year I didn't actually need to see the doctor at all. When I've been able to heat more constantly, I haven't really needed to go to the doctors for antibiotics and steroids like I've done in the past, so it was good for my health. Another one, Mum is feeling a lot better. She's not staying in bed as long because obviously now it's nice and warm for her to get out of bed. Of course, it's not just grants for heating that are needed, but also serious efforts to insulate our homes and end fuel poverty. The UK government spends £2.5 billion each year trying to reduce fuel poverty. However, only 16% of that reaches fuel-poor households, and still less reaches those who are fuel-poor and have significant health conditions. Over many years, Newcastle Council has tried to improve home insulation via the warm zone and other schemes, but there are still far too many households in fuel poverty. So in this motion, we are calling for Newcastle to be included in any future trials of warm home prescription and for the Council to accelerate the programme to get all Newcastle homes insulated. Liberal Democrat councillors are aware that the Newcastle Public Health team have already plans to use some public health money to fund a similar short-term warm home prescription scheme until March this year, which will give eligible patients a grant for their heating costs. We've been told that the Energy Services team will prescribe a heating plan to keep homes at temperatures that mitigate the risk of hospital admissions and serious illness, as recommended by public health guidance. In addition, the team will also be able to check that residents are linked into the appropriate advice and grants for sustainable support. This scheme is, of course, very welcome and should provide additional evidence of the effectiveness of the approach. But we believe the scheme should be rolled out and funded by the government, as the financial benefit of keeping vulnerable people out of hospital will not be felt by local councils. Colleagues, I urge you to support the motion.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Councillor Kane, would you like to speak or reserve? Thank you. We have an amendment. I call upon Councillor Ali to move the amendment.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Taylor, for your motion, an extremely important and timely one, and in line with our priorities, as you know. With regards to Councillor request number 1 in the motion, the answer is yes. We will contact Energy Systems Catapult, who is running these pilot projects, and in partnership with the NHS, to discuss the potential of joining the current or any future pilot projects. Slight amendment with regards to Council request number 2, because for obvious reasons some of our efforts will be dependent on government funding, as you have just stated. So we will, Cabinet will continue to bid for additional funding to help install insulation measures to as many homes as possible in Newcastle. So far, Newcastle has secured over £21 million of grant funding over the last 3 years to deliver a full range of insulation and low-carbon heating measures. This has helped to improve almost 3,200 homes, both in the private and social sector, targeting homes with poor energy efficiency rating and households on low income. Further bids totalling £10 million have been submitted, which will fund insulation measures for residents over the next 2 years. We will continue to investigate how we can expand the range of support and funding options to accelerate delivery to help our residents reduce their energy demand and improve their living environment. We have a strong delivery record and have in place the infrastructure to allow us to continue to review and identify new funding opportunities. This also includes investigating how we can support residents themselves to identify suitable improvements to their properties, access funding, and install measures to reduce fuel bills and improve their living environment. We are prioritising the support we provide to our most vulnerable residents in the city. We need the government to continue to strengthen policies, regulations, and provide long-term funding to allow councils to deliver our local and national climate change targets, which will, of course, include home insulation. Please support the amendment. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ali. Councillor Rahman, would you like to speak or reserve? Thank you. Councillor Ashby, you would like to speak?
Lord Mayor, warm homes also make a small contribution to carbon neutrality by reducing the waste of energy resulting from poor insulation. That is, of course, in addition to the threat to health and well-being as well as premature deaths. This motion, therefore, has my support. And while I welcome the Sustainable Warmth Scheme launched by the Council before Christmas and wish it well, I note that it's limited in its ambition. Colleagues will have seen that it's targeted at Newcastle City Council residents who own their own homes or rent from a private landlord, have a gross household income of $30,000 per year or less, live in homes with a low energy rating as shown on an EPC certificate, where the rating is D, E, F or G. And I very much look forward to learning in due course of the success of this programme, which is important to many. I hope it doesn't get bogged down in bureaucracy, is implemented at scale and quickly, that is expanded to homes where the household income is higher and or the EPC rating is higher, and that local companies and workers are used in its implementation. And although making energy efficiency a planning condition is problematic, I hope that councillors on the planning committee ask hard questions of developers about their proposals to minimise energy use. But while talking about keeping people warm and healthy, can I commend to Council private sector and voluntary efforts to provide warm spaces and warm food to local people during the cost of living and climate crises. And in particular, Owl Tree Children's Cafe in the Parklands, on the Parklands-Forden boundary. With the Help for Small Ward grant, we have one of the smallest ward budgets in the city, despite local need. It and its team of volunteers are reaching out to grandparents, especially to accompany children to a warm place with play value, but also low-cost, nutritious, hot food. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Ashby. Councillor Kane, you have nothing? Go. Yep.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I'm very pleased to second this motion of Councillor Taylor's. There's a wider movement within the NHS for social prescribing that this is part of, and my particular interest in it, of course, is green social prescribing and how more eco-friendly behaviour often has huge benefits for health, both physical and mental. Obviously, if we shift, for example, from driving to cycling, we improve our own health, we improve our own mental health because of the exercise we get, and just it's a nicer thing to do. And obviously, we improve the health of others through reduced particulates. The NHS is now looking at, instead of tackling the symptoms of health problems, is going for the root cause, whether that's air quality, whether it's a detachment from nature, and we have things like green gyms, and in this case, the benefits of warm homes. And of course, that would free up a huge amount of cash for dealing with other health problems at a time that the NHS is very heavily pushed. And we tend to sort of default in issues, whether it's the winter fuel allowance or whether it's the current support being given to help people with rising fuel bills, to cash payouts. The problem with that is they're only ever a short-term fix, and they have to be done year after year after year. Whereas by insulating our homes much better, obviously that cuts the problem at source and saves the individual money, saves the taxpayer money, and reduces the burden on the health services as well. So I suppose this is a plea always for the big picture thinking, that more eco-friendly behaviour, more eco-friendly lifestyles are not just good for the planet, in inverted commas, they're good for all of us as well. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Kane. Councillor Councillor Taylor, would you like to respond?
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Whilst I appreciate the comments that Councillor Ali has said, I really can't accept the amendment because I don't think it's good enough. Of course, additional funding from government is always very welcome, but home insulation is so important to health that we can't wait for the government to provide the money. Professor Marmot has recently said that the most important thing local councils can do to improve health is to build warm homes and to insulate those we already have. Let's try and find the funding. If the government won't give it, we have to find it somewhere else. This is a really cost-effective, sensible measure that the motion mentions, but it wouldn't be necessary if our homes were warm enough.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. So I'm assuming the amendment is not agreed. Therefore, we need to go to the vote. Are we all logged in? Yeah, so we are voting on the amendment. You can't get in. I'm taking it, Councillor Huddart, Campion and Keating and Ashby. Anybody else? Okay. Start at the back. Councillor Campion? Against. Councillor Huddart? Councillor Keating? Councillor Ashby? Is that everybody? It's still coming through. So the amendment is agreed. Is the motion agreed as per the amendment? Well, 5 minutes to go, colleagues. I think you're doing very well. Give yourself a round of applause. We managed to get through all the business fully, I think, even though I was a little bit trigger happy at times. The next meeting of Council will be 6 p.m. on Wednesday, the 1st of February. 3 weeks' time, so you've just got time to get home, have something to eat, then come back. And we will see you then.